that long because I'm gonna get back to doing that.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
Yeah, me also. I hadn't been able to get the books, so I've had a big delay. And
Okay.
I mentioned to John that with the Kabbalah, I had to start over again. So I went back to the very beginning because it's a lot of information for me, and I needed to be able to to understand it better.
Yeah.
So when I reread it, my notes that I highlighted were really well, and it really sunk in for me. So now I'm just back up to chapter 15.
Okay.
I'm way behind, but I got my books later than everyone also too. So I'm really taking my time as the author suggested.
Right.
I want to try to make sure I get some of those books that you just recommended because I'm not sure if I have those what you just said. And I want to get down to the tarot cards too.
Yeah, I'm memorizing those. I'm going through my deck, and I went and got another deck, nothing on them, and I'm memorizing what's what. But once you start with the aces, and you work your way down, you put them on where the tree at. You can memorize. Because you know you got a pinnacle, you got a sword, you got a wand, and then you got another one. So you can memorize from 1 all the way down to 10, and then you can. I just look at the cards. I look at them. I just go through them and I look at them and I memorize them. What's what?
So is this one like the 4 worlds? Is that what you're speaking of?
I'm not even familiar with that yet. I heard John talk about it, but
okay.
I know when he lined them up on the tree of life, I know the aces start up top and then you go all the way down 2, 3. I think that's how he said it. But either way, like I said, I just go through my cards. I put the deck back together like it was when it was new, and I just look at the cards, so I know what's what when I see it.
You have the rider deck, correct?
Yeah, I got that deck, and then I got another rider deck. It just has just the pictures on it. Don't tell you. Like this deck tells you what's going on to a certain degree. But the other deck I have is a rider weight deck, but it don't have the information on there, but it got it on a little piece of paper.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So like I said, I just look at the cards, man, and memorize what the cards are for now.
For now.
Yeah. And it's really easy to remember them. Like you say, you do the repetition, man, and you just keep looking at them and you know what they are.
Okay. It's a lot of information, man.
It is. It is. It seems like it can be overwhelming at times, but we're doing it. We're making progress. I study maybe an hour when I get ready to study. Depending on what it is I'm doing, I can take the tarot cards out for like 20 minutes and just keep looking at them, till man, I got about, I'm gonna say, hey, I got more than half of them memorized. I'm coming in to completion with them, but it's only going to take me a few more days to memorize them because that's how I did with the planets, the elements. I just kept repetition, looking at them and writing them down, and now I got them memorized.
Really?
Yeah.
Right. Okay. That's good. Thank you for letting me know that. I'm gonna really have to get on this, man. I really do.
And you'd be surprised how fast you learn it. I mean, and then I'll go back from time to time and I'll call out the separates to myself, and I'll go back and I'll call out the planets, and then I'll go back and call out the zodiac signs. And like I said, after you get them, you be done memorize them. And then as you read stuff, for me, I know as I read more and more of the stuff, it start to come together.
Okay.
You start seeing familiar correspondences and it start to come together. That makes it easy to read.
Hell yeah. What's going on, everybody?
Hey, Trav, what's up, man?
Grand Rising.
Hey, how y'all doing?
I have a little bit of technical difficulties here. I don't know. It seems like every time I try to set this up, it starts to go backwards. But it's all good. We're here.
So what was going on with the I was kind of confused about the was that Thursday? Yeah, Thursday. It was more of a YouTube instead of a live.
So Thursday it was a regular Magus Academy meeting.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah, I just wanted to test out making it viewable for the members of YouTube.
Okay, I got you.
It wasn't public, just for the people that are, you know, members of this whole thing right now.
Okay. Hey. I'm tuning in.
All right. So today we're going to be somewhat focused on Chokmah and step 4 of initiation into hermetics, or everything before that. Anyone have any questions or comments about? I see Ananya's got the notes ready.
Mhm.
I've got doubts. I mean questions. Here's the second and third point. I couldn't like really grasp what the second and third point in the chapter 16 is trying to say.
Hold on. Don't hit me with it just yet.
I didn't bring my
Hey Isaac, can you hear me?
Yeah, what's going on?
Yeah, I don't know what the hell last week too. I don't know what's up with my microphone on my thing. I can't even speak or say anything. So I had to call in. I just want to make sure everybody can hear me on this. I had to
Yeah.
call in. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Mike.
Grand Rising, everyone.
Hello.
Grand Rising.
So this. Okay.
Rodolfo, missed you last time. Everything good?
Yeah. I just had some family stuff. I had some relatives coming over. It's all good now. I'm excited.
Cool. I know you're staying up to date with the step.
This is probably my favorite one. Like doing the earth meditation, the water meditation. I feel like, and doing it with your legs and stuff. I feel like, I don't know, that part really does with me, because I feel like I'm going to start doing that every day. I'm just start doing the elemental meditations every day.
Yeah. So are you referring to 3 or 4 as well?
I think it was in 4. A lot of that stuff is trippy. I realized like the transference of consciousness.
Mm-hmm.
I used to try to do that all the time when I was little. Like I would look at a dog and be like, wow, I wonder what that dog is thinking or how it thinks. And I would just like literally try to pretend to be the dog. Like not like physically, like just in my mind, try to go in the dog's mind and try to figure out how he views everything. Like I used to do that all the time with birds, the teacher. I'm like, yo, I don't really understand what she's saying. Let me try to figure out why she would say that. It's nuts. And I'm like, wow, I can't believe I was doing that. I didn't think it was crazy. I just thought like, like, all right, it's not really like working too much. So I guess I got to stop. But now reading this stuff, I'm like, wow, what would have happened if I would have kept trying?
Right.
Man, that's pure genius.
I mean,
Yeah, that's me.
step 4 is the beginning of clairsentience. It's an imaginary exercise, but this is how you connect to developing clairsentience.
Wow. And that's the clair I feel like I resonate with the most.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. This is crazy stuff. You read a paragraph and you're like, whoa. And then you have to like sit on it. Like these readings, like, yeah, they're a little short, but like if you're really trying to understand them, you got to sit on them for a little bit and just kind of just like right, let it resonate. And the Kabbalah book is getting crazy too, man. It's exciting.
Yeah, man. Yeah, I'm studying this alongside a few other things as well, and I'm just seeing the dots connect across the board. So It's really incredible. I honestly, truly feel like I'm enterprising into some fields that haven't been touched or really discussed.
And that's crazy you say that, because before I kind of got into this, I was into like existentialism, and in that they had something called, well, Nietzsche had something called the Uberman, or the superior man, or something like that.
Right.
And the superior man, basically like is a stoic, like he detaches himself from like regular man stuff, so he can see the view from above almost.
Right, right. You know, we talk about the idea of the Superman, Ubermensch, that's what it is. And in our imagination, we think of Superman as somebody who's like super buff and he can fly. But really, looking outside of the physical perspective, all of men are the same thing. It's the inside of the man that determines his power, his ability, and his potential. And you're right,
It's
it does.
It's insane how everyone's kind of talking about the same stuff in a different way.
Yes, yes.
That just blows my mind. I'm gonna read a hero with Joseph Campbell's A Hero with a Thousand Faces, where like the hero's journey. I'm gonna read that right after this, and then try to tie it in with the Kabbalah and see how like this human like archetype, whatever, like to become a hero, like how does it correspond with the Kabbalah? I'm gonna do that next.
Most definitely. And while you're doing that, it would be cool if you also check out the tarot and notice how the major arcana, specifically the ones that revolve around Tiferet, notice those, and also the different steps on the hero's journey, and prepare to be
okay. Oh my God, I'm excited.
From the hermit to the devil to death. Yeah. Everything connects to the Kabbalah. Everything. You cannot escape it.
I'm excited. As soon as we got through Chokmah, I was like, oh, like it literally tells you, like, I feel like now I kind of understand where I was messing up in some things in life, where I might have had just unrelenting force, and maybe I could try to figure out how to put that force into form more. So yeah, it's pretty interesting stuff. And like there was a chapter, I mean, I'll point it out later, but it was saying something how like everything, like the level above you is negative to you.
Right.
So it's kind of like, you ever watched the movie Yes Man? Well, kind of spoiler, he used to be like say no to everything. So he was just kind of depressed in his house, and then he started saying yes to everything, and then he got everything he wanted. So basically, it was just basically how I tied it to this was he viewed yes as a negative. So he was always saying no to stuff. Like he didn't want to go to like the bar or whatever. So he viewed yes as negative, and literally the level above him, like the life he wanted, was in that negative, where he perceived that to be all negative space. You know what I'm trying to say? So then like it was kind of like, yeah, the sphere above him was literally, he perceived it as negative.
Yeah.
You know what I'm trying to say? So I was just kind of like, I don't know, some parallels there. And I'm just like, and the spheres below you was positive. So it's just more like, you're always going to want to do the same shit you've been doing yesterday. Like you're comfortable with it. So you see positivity in it. But in reality is, if you want to get above, you're going to have to start literally being comfortable with the uncomfortable, or like getting in tune with the negative, or like it's going to, yeah, you know? So that's pretty interesting too. Yeah, this stuff is crazy, man.
She dropped some major keys in this chapter, and specifically that what you're talking about, the polarity. That's a huge aspect of Chokmah, polarity. I really like what she was saying about the genders, how if you have incarnated in a masculine vehicle, then in the material realm of Asaya, you are positive. In the astral realm, you're negative. And then in Bria, you're positive. In Absolute, you're negative. So that also points to, if a masculine entity in the physical realm done, it'll best be done if he goes up a level to the astral plane and attracts the energy as a feminine entity. If you start to have that make sense. And then the opposite goes for a female. And we can see that in the physical realm, how a man goes out to look for a woman, and a woman does what she can to attract a man. But when you look at that in the astral realm, the opposite is happening. She's projecting her essence out, and the man is receiving that, you know, the flip-flops on each one, higher up you go.
That's
But that just goes to show also that all the aspects of this tree of life system, it can't be taken as just one sphere or one piece. You got to look at everything in relation to each other. So the tree is best understood in pairs or in groups of 3 or in sections, because we're dealing with the transfer of energy. We can't just look at one piece without looking at where it's connected to. So that's why in the chapter of Chokmah, she talked a lot about Bina, even though we're not there yet. She talked a lot about Kether, because it's impossible to describe one without the other. Really cool stuff. But, you know, I strive to make this make sense, because it's very abstract. We looked at Kether as the unity, the balance of everything. And the difference with Kether is that Kether was inert. It was motionless. Kether was the idea. It just was there. It's a point. And if you notice, each one of the spheres, every number also relates to what shape it is. So if Kether's a point, it's 1, then Chokmah, the next point, connects as a line. And the reason that it's masculine is because we think of that force. Before it was just latent, it was asleep. But when we evolve energy, it's a masculine energy. So it pushes out, it penetrates, it moves forward. Chokmah took that as the vitalizing force. It moves, active activity. So that's where we get the line. That's why it's connected with the penis. That's why it's connected with the lingam. That's why it's connected with masculinity. Then likewise, with Bina, if we've got the energy moving out, it must be received. And that's what Bina is. That's why Bina is the feminine. So Bina is naturally magnetizing Chokmah. But they're both, when that union connects, that's what we have with Kether. Kether is as it existed before it was separated. Kether is literally that yin-yang energy. But when we come down a level, because Kether represents absolute. So if we look at it from a lower dimension, which would be Bria, that androgynous energy is now separated. First it was Chokmah, then Bina. Maybe.
Yeah, I like how that book highlighted that Chokmah was like the power in the power plant, and then Bina was like the power plant itself. So it harnessed the energy. So yeah, I liked how they said that.
Yes. Yes. And it was also very important how she talked about the masculine and the feminine energies, how the masculine is the giver of life and the feminine is the giver of death. Now that's contrary to what we're taught in the real world, because we're taught, oh, the woman gives life, it's the woman, she gives birth, da 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 da. But you know, that's only looking at it from a very limited perspective, and given the presupposition that life is a positive thing. The reality of it is the masculine energy is the activating force, right? The woman does have the eggs in her body, but without the activating force of the masculine, those eggs don't move. They have to be activated by that masculine energy. So that's why the masculine force is regarded as the giver of life. When a man engages, when the masculine energy engages, he's setting it into motion. Now, the reason that the feminine aspect is called the giver of death is because that action and that activity, like you said, has to be received. And what happens is that force is now turned into a form. So the man has the idea, but the woman develops it. And what's actually happening, because that force, that immortal force, has now been given a form, anything that has a form must at some point deteriorate, must dissolve, must decay, must die. So that's why the woman is the giver of death. When she takes in the energy into her womb, she gives it a body. But the double-edged sword is that body must die at some point. It must suffer. It must be born into the physical realm, therefore it must decay. But that's how it goes.
John,
Yes.
yeah, so I have questions. In the second and third point in this chapter 16, Chokmah. So in this, the last line says that the crystallization of Kether in space as a dynamic process, it partakes rather of a staticism of the limiting of the formless and free in the bonds of form. I couldn't get this.
Okay. That's number 2.
Yeah, second one, last line.
So number 2 says, the forth flowing energy represented by the straight line or the uplifted rod of power is essentially dynamic. It is in fact the primary dynamism, for we cannot conceive the crystallization of Kether in space as a dynamic process. It partakes rather of a staticism, of the limiting of the formless and free in the bonds of form, tenuous as that form may be in our eyes. Okay, so this is talking about how Kether, like I said a little bit earlier, is dormant. It's kind of just there. It isn't activity. It exists, it just exists. And that's what she means by saying that we cannot conceive the crystallization of Kether in space as a dynamic process. It's not dynamic, it's not moving. It's just as it is. She says it partakes rather of a staticism, meaning it's still. Its existence is just still. There's no movement. The movement happens in Chokmah. But when we think of Kether, this is like the first inception that already contains all the possibilities. It's pure potential. Okay. Of the limiting of the formless and free in the bonds of form, tenuous as that form may be. So it partakes rather of staticism. It partakes of just existing in stillness. And it hasn't yet experienced being put into a form. Last part.
Okay. And the 28th point in this chapter. 28.
28.
Yes.
That's kind of what we were talking about as far as being positive on one plane, which is negative above.
So I had this question that it's mentioned that Bina is actually positive.
Mm-hmm.
Bina is positive, but when they mentioned that in Exilus,
Mm-hmm.
it is negative. No, Bina is actually negative, but in Exilus, it is positive. Exilus is positive. The feminine is positive in Exilus, but Bina is negative. So that I found quite contradictory and confusing.
Yeah. So you've got the polarity as it is structured on the tree. Like you said, Bina is negative.
Negative.
But depending on its relationship to either its opposing sphere or the sphere beneath it is going to determine whether it's negative or positive. For example, Bina is negative, but to Gibura, it's positive. Let's see. She does mention something about that a little bit further on in this chapter.
In chapter 29, in 29th, I think it was mentioned something like that.
Okay, if you look in 42, she goes into that same thing more detailed. 42. And about halfway through 42, she says, Chokmah is a positive, and Bina is a positive, negative.
I couldn't understand that point. Chokmah is a positive. I had 40 seconds as confusion. How is it a positive? Like I couldn't understand it. How is it positive, and how is the next one negative, positive? I think something like that. 40 seconds also, I had some confusion.
So it is directly related to the Sephirah that it's connected to. So the positivity or negativity has to do with what it's connected to. When it's talking about positive or negative, positive means it's giving, Negative means it's receiving. So
So what I was taking that to mean also to it, whether if you were in a male or female body,
mhm.
is that, am I deducing that right? That's what I took it as. What
Okay.
you just said before.
And that's part of it, right? And what she was talking about also a little bit earlier in this chapter was that as far as your physical manifestation of gender,
Right.
depending on the planes also, if you're positive on one, the one above it, you're negative. And the one above that is positive again. So it's all in relation to which plane you're talking about. As it is, male represents positive. But in relation to a higher plane, your same consciousness on the astral plane would be the opposite. So that means me in a male body, on the astral realm, my essence is feminine, meaning it's receiving from the mental realm, but it's positive to the physical.
How is Chokmah positive? It is receiving energy from, not energy, but it is receiving the inflow from Kether. So it should be negative, positive.
Okay, I see what you're saying. It's positive because it isn't receiving energy from Kether. It is moving out of Kether. It is the masculine force of Kether.
Okay.
See what I'm saying? Kether has Chokmah and Bina in it, but Chokmah expresses itself first. So it pushes out.
Okay. So that's why it's positive.
That's why it's positive. And that's why it's the head of the masculine side of the tree, because it's the first masculine expression. It pushes out. And if you look at the path that connects Kether to Chokmah, it's represented by the Fool card. And the Fool, the card is the dude, he's just stepping out on that cliff. He's taking that first step.
Yeah.
So that it represents that energy. It's initiating, it's moving out.
I think it's kind of like sun energy. The sun emanates, and that negative would be like the moon. The moon doesn't give its own light. It receives the light from the sun, and then it reflects it back outward so we can see it. So it's like an emanation of the duplicate. It becomes like a duplicate of Chokmah, of itself. So Chokmah is like a duplicate of Kether, but it's not necessarily Kether because it's moved away from that essence. So it has to reflect Kether, but it also has to in turn duplicate itself to be an independent, and then it has to keep on moving so it can head to the next emanation of itself or duplicate of itself, which is Bina. The way that I kind of see it like that. I don't know if I made that more difficult, but basically on the basic, it's the sun gives, the moon receives, and then it reflects.
But then the whole essence is changed because sun emanates warmth, and moon, I have heard, it emanates like watery, like something very cool, cooling effect. Moon has a cooling effect. And sun has
that's its own emanation. So that would be its own positive or negative. So because it has to have its own identity, but there's no separation on the tree of life. It's only separated by the energy that it receives and the energy that it gives off. You know, I mean, I don't want to make it confusing, but that's
Yeah. And in 33rd point, 33, it is mentioned that I think they have mentioned a process of working with the opposite field, because if you are born a female, then you have to, I couldn't understand this process, like the thing they have mentioned in point 33.
Yeah. On 33, it talks about, in magical workings, the man or woman who desires to work with the opposite type of force to that of their physical vehicle, and it is part of their routine of occult training that they should do so, shifts the level of consciousness onto a plane on which they find themselves of the requisite polarity and works thereon.
Just said that, yeah.
So how to actually bring it in practice?
So, as it says a little bit earlier, trying to find that verse where she actually, yeah, there it is, on 29. She says that, from this we learn that when the soul is in a female incarnation, it will function negatively in Asaya and Bria, but positively in Yetzirah and Atziluth. In other words, a woman is physically and mentally negative, but psychically and spiritually positive, and the reverse holds true for a man. So we've got these 4 realms. The lowest realm of Asaya is the physical. The next is Yetzirah, and that is astral. Then above that, mental, then above that, spiritual. So it kind of, it alternates. If on the physical realm you're female, that means on the astral realm, your energy is male. So as far as putting it in practice, your astral work would involve using the type of energy like Chokmah, the initiating, the pushing out. You see what I'm saying? Doing things that utilize that type of energy, that type of frequency. You would be best suited to do it that way.
Okay, so in astral, I will be working as a positive energy, like Chokmah.
Right. And that would be on the astral plane. You would be more easily inclined to work in that way.
I got a question. I'm trying to understand what you're saying about this masculine and feminine thing. This doesn't have anything to do with your duality on your zodiac sign, does it?
What do you mean by the dual?
I'm kind of confused. It's like you said masculine, feminine. And I started thinking about well, my duality, I'm a Taurus, so my duality is feminine. Does that have anything to do with what we're talking about? Or did I just go left?
I wouldn't say it too much. Are you referring to because Taurus is an earth element and earth being feminine?
Yeah.
So in that respect, I think what it's more talking about is as earth being feminine as in how nature, right? It receives sunlight, it receives the seeds, it nurtures the seeds and gives the seeds form.
Okay, I got you. Okay.
So I think it's a little bit different than what Dion Fortune's talking about on this part.
Okay, all right. I didn't want to get confused, that's all. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
This
Trey,
is,
so is that why the woman might be, you know, like the stereotypical thought of the woman is more giving and you know, fixing meals and taking care of, and you know, we're more like taking it and not even thinking about why the fuck we took it. I mean, you know, saying thank you sometime and shit like that, or you know, just a yeah, okay.
Absolutely. So that's more of the feminine nature on the physical plane. That's
Okay.
that exactly represents the qualities of that feminine nature.
Because God is more, because that Chokmah is more giving, is more, you know what I mean? Yeah, trying to, you know, praise. Yeah, okay.
And so if we were to kind of just take the methodology of what Franz Barton was talking about, fire doesn't mean fire. It means the quality of fire. Water means the quality of water. Likewise, in this book, Mystical Kabbalah, male doesn't mean man, feminine doesn't mean female. It's talking about the qualities of such.
Right.
I think that some people may get hung up when we talk about masculine and feminine because we're used to thinking about the physical body, but we're talking about the essence of the energy. Just like you said with the mama, you know, making sure everybody's all right, nurturing, giving out the food, you know what I'm saying, taking care of it, you know, that's a feminine energy. So for these males, men incarnate in the male body, it would behoove us to behave this way concerning astral activity.
Right.
Okay.
So have more of a, you know, in like rituals or something, give more of like a taking spirit in, you know what I'm saying? Or instead of like forcing it so much, you know what I'm saying?
Right. We may force things to happen on the physical,
Right.
but for men on the astral, we're receiving, and we're not necessarily receiving from other people. We're receiving from the mental realm, directly above us, right? So when I do my studies, it's not like I'm trying to penetrate and find. I'm receiving information. When I do my work in the astral, I'm receiving from the mental. Does that make sense?
Right. And and then the sister there, she probably could she could force and be a little bit more focused at hers.
Right.
That would be the okay. All right.
Can you put that into like a little example? Like I understand like the concept of when we up there, we're receiving, but I just don't understand why there's like a split between the two. Like how come when a shorty go up there, she's forcing, and when I go up there, I'm receiving, like, but there's no like actual form. You understand what I'm trying to say?
Right.
I just don't understand.
It's all energetic. So when it comes to energy, there's two sides of energy. There's the giving and the receiving. Now, just like there's multiple planes, what we learned from Ophiel, what we learned from Franz Barton, and what we're learning from Dion Fortune is that the planes in relation to one being above the other, if one is positive, then the next plane is negative. So if on the physical, your vehicle is a positive, is a male, then by default, the next level above it is operating on feminine frequency. Above that, it's operating on a masculine frequency. Like that, that's how it's stacked in order for the circulation to happen. You feel me?
Equilibrium for real, but not saying that you couldn't do it with force or whatever, but like to go with the nature of it more, you know what I mean? If you wanted it to be easier, maybe probably just do the opposite of whatever we are, I guess, you know.
Oh, yeah. So that's just kind of like the default.
Yeah, well, you just got to follow the law all the way through, though. You know what I'm saying? So if you just follow the law, and if it's stacked, and you just stay stacked with the energy, you know what I'm saying? Like you keep it and receive it, and she keeps it enforcing, no matter what you're doing. Maybe if you're just speaking words, or even if you're just studying, you know what I'm saying? Like if that energy, it works better for us, I guess, if you use it. I mean, if you follow that, you know. Instead of going against it, just going with the flow and just, yeah.
It's kind of like the tree. You could be severe or you could be merciful. It's like a king or a queen. The queen is most likely going to be, she's going to confide in the king to be merciful. Show him mercy, dear. But the king may be like, you know what, I'm ready to chop his head off because I'm sick of this right now. So to become more in tune with that feminine, you're gonna have to first calm that fire down, and you're gonna have to kind of go within, and you might have to show compassion, show some sort of sincerity, things that like womanly. And I don't always want, and that's the whole thing is when we get into the feminine or the masculine, basically our minds have been so tuned to associate them words with just the physical of a man or a woman or a feminine or a masculine, that we gotta kind of get out of that mental structure to get into the abstract essence of those words. But basically it's once we physically hear, and this is a saya, we come in tune with the components or the demonstration of softness, of inner peace and imagination and being dreamy and stuff like that. Those will be considered the feminine essence of the self. The masculine self is going to be logical and rough and give me the answer now. I have no patience for waiting for this type of stuff. So the whole balance is before you even get into going into the Bria, you're gonna have to first deal with a Saya to connect with those essences that will be considered feminine essence. So when you see those pictures in alchemy where there's a half a man and a half a woman, that's a balanced being. That's not a physical, that's not even a physical demonstration. You can only demonstrate it physically to trigger the mind to be like, in order for me to become more spiritually in tune, I have to be balanced in myself. Or that's why they use the hermaphrodite and stuff like that, because it's a balance.
Right.
Okay.
Travis, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was done.
I just have a question, Travis. Would it be accurate to say that using the like the fountain analogy where you have like the fountains flowing into the other fountains, that the fountain below would be negative because it's empty until the fountain above fills it?
Yeah.
Yo,
Yeah.
that works, bro.
Yeah, that's a great one. That's a great example. Because the fountain below is receiving the essence from that which is above. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's spot on right there. Yeah.
That helps me read my cards better too. I got like these Golden Dawn cards and they, yeah. I'm trying to picture.
You just broke down what's called the Shiva Linga. That cup, or the encircled part of the Shiva Linga, is the linga is that stone, that round stone that sits in the middle of that cup, and they usually pour milk over that. But the cup is what receives it. So you just described that. So the cup is the vessel or the womb, and the water coming forth from that is that force. So pretty much you just hit that right on the head by describing it another way, but basically that would be called Shiva Linga. That was deep, man.
I'm gonna write that down.
Nice.
Can I ask doubt from another chapter?
Well, just before this one.
Not before this one?
Go ahead. What were you saying?
Chapter 9, verse 23. There's a process given in this verse. Working with the stairs. That's what I am like thinking. I think it's a process given. Chapter 9, verse 23.
9 verse 23, and it's dealing with the 10 Sephiroth in the 4 worlds. You said you have a question about which part?
You said?
Yeah, so 23 of chapter 9, she's just talking about why they include the symbol of an archangel for each Sephiroth, and those essentially represent the guardians of each sphere. So when you do meditations on these spheres, you encounter the essence of Sephiroth, the form and the symbol of these archangels. So it talks about before embarking on the path working of that particular sphere, it would behoove you to meditate on the concept of that symbol of that angel, in a way asking its blessing. But we know we're not dealing with mystical angels up in the heavens. It's a symbolic reference, kind of initiating yourself into working with this energy.
Like setting an intention to like visualizing. symbol or invoking an archangel.
Like setting an intention. Yes. And if you ever are really interested in that, this book right here goes into great detail on doing the path spheres and walking with the angels through each one. But she gives you all the details. This book was written decades later, and it basically goes that path. That process.
Who's the author? I'm sorry.
Who is, yeah, author?
I'll put it in the chat so you can see it.
Okay. So that book has some like methods of working on the spheres.
Right. But the reason I'm showing that book is because it's specific to what you asked. She's got the process of path working, the paths and the spheres with respect to the angels that Dion mentions in chapter 9, verse 23.
Okay.
For example, Malkuth is ruled by the angel Sandalphon. So the first meditation that she has invokes, so you're invoking the angel Sandalphon, and she's describing the landscape usually associated with him. Pretty much putting all the little details into an easy to work process.
Okay.
That Ted Andrews does the same thing too, doesn't it? I was looking through it and I saw some stuff talking about how to contact the angels. Because like I said, I got like 5 books that I'm cross-referencing to better understand what's going on.
I didn't really get through this one too much, so I can't say. I know this one really touches on the tarot. That's the part that I liked about it so far.
And chapter 10, verse 19.
Yeah.
So I think.
Yeah, so that really connects to what we were just talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah, and in the course of his meditations, he may so enter into the spirit of the path that its guardian shall come to know him and make him welcome. He will then literally have initiated himself, and no one can deny his right to be there. Yeah, and if you go one verse before that, number 18.
What does it mean that the guardian shall come to know him and make him welcome? Like an entity is there who will like welcome and.
Yeah. Yeah, so each of these spheres and even the paths are guarded by an entity, right? Now, as she's talked about here in
Like
this
an
chapter.
actual entity or a symbolic, like it's a symbolic energy or something like.
What do you think?
I think like an energy gateway sort of, or maybe a real entity. I think it's symbolic rather than a figure of like a god form standing with a sword and stopping. I don't think it's like that. Something energetic block.
It's both. You're right. You're right. That you create the entity that's in that sphere. Like you could basically that's it. You create the guardian of the path. Doubt can be the creature, and whatever you see that the deeper you go or you ascend upward, you're gonna go through emotional changes. You may get to a point a year from now, and this may totally frustrate you, and you will just leave it all alone. That was the guardian of that path. He totally destroyed you from going any further. Some people get afraid of their own self. That's the guardian of the path. Now, if you choose to draw, or you could use any type of image that you see, and you become you like that image, then you could assign that image to the path. But the atmosphere. So you're right. It's not necessarily something that's going to be there, but it is necessarily going to be something that's going to be there. It's no different than in Buddhism. They have different levels that they go up. There's always a bodhi that's going to be there that they can learn from.
I'm getting it. Like when the yogis meditate and some angels or demons came to hinder their process of meditation. It's just like that. At different levels, when they are like getting to another level of meditation, then some angels or demons will come to distract the yogi from meditation or whatever.
And that was something that he met within his own consciousness that he didn't destroy on the lower consciousness. So it just manifested itself in whatever particular form. See, the mind and the spirit is a powerful thing, and it's older than we physically are. So we're trying to comprehend what it is. So as we attempt to comprehend and learn, it still is going to be as it is. It's not going to change the primordial essence of itself so we could get it. It's gonna make us get it, whether we get it or we not. It's gonna be as it is. That's why the higher you go, that's why you can't get the Kepler, because it is I am that I am. We're busy trying to figure out, and I'm not saying anything wrong. We're trying to figure out whether this being is a real being, is it a psychological, is it this? But I am that I am is going to be as it is. You understand?
Nah.
So we created.
Can I share something? Years ago, I took a class called craniosacral. Long story short, I went through a very traumatic experience in that. Through that traumatic experience, it opened something. Have you ever heard of craniosacral, anyone before? No? Okay, so basically it is a energy, it's an energy work that removes trauma from the skin and bone and skin tissues, and sometimes even endocrine system as well. So it's for example, if you have wore braces all your life, just to keep it simple, I mean, when you were a child, and then you took the braces out, but you tend to have TMJ in your 30s, then what it is that it takes that memory from the muscle and the bone and the ligaments to let the muscle know that you don't have to be like that anymore. Let go. So do you get that? Okay, so I went through an experience with that where a voice came out of me, and it freaked people out, and people didn't want to be near me in the class because the voice was not my voice. It was some other voice coming up out of me. And then with that experience, my teacher at the time said, well, let me try something else with you. And I just said, no. And she just said, just be quiet and just don't be afraid. And she said, and this was long before I knew anything about any of this. She took her hand with her two thumbs, and it was right here in chapter, excuse me, let me get that. Chapter 11, verse 11. and she took her fingers right here in the nape of my neck, and she drew back. And then all of a sudden, it's like I went somewhere, and then I felt like a push, a very stern energy. And wow, I'm welling up right now. So it was a really stern energy, and I felt that energy. Like, kind of like, who are you? What are you doing here? What's going on? And I'm kind of crossed up now. I'm like, she didn't give me the answer of what it was I was feeling. She says, well, you felt that the guardian. She did say a guardian. So it is physical. I don't know. I felt it, in short. I felt it. But what I'm asking is, was it right for her to put me in that position when I didn't even know what the hell I was doing at that time?
I don't know.
Apparently, it had a profound effect on you, so you can get a deeper understanding of it today. So I think all things that we experience are beneficial for it. It depends on your interpretation. I think yours is really on point right now, by being filled by the Spirit, and you have an understanding of it right now, and that experience helped you. That's from my point of view, listening.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't understand one thing. Like I think like I always get confused. Like some people say that these entities, like so some people sometimes say, oh, she got possessed by that entity. And a woman, my doctor, I went for treatment, and she suddenly screamed at me and she said, oh God, 5 entities are sitting on you. And I was like, what? And I was quite depressed. So she was like, you are depressed because 5 entities are sitting on you. And I was like, so is it possible that like what an entity is a psychological manifestation of your own mind, or is there something really out there, like a being or something?
I'm saying that I experienced something really out there in my case.
Yeah, even I one time saw a red figure in night, and it just crawled on the wall and went away. And I was at that time also, I was very depressed and scared, so I kept wondering whether it was real or my own brain playing tricks on me.
Mm. Well, being afraid of it, I don't think it's going to help. I think
Yeah,
what
it
you
wasn't. It didn't. It
yeah,
didn't. And then
yeah.
I had to like pray or something to really feel better. Those were the initial days of my spiritual journey.
Okay.
And I was seeing a lot of black figurey things, and I was seeing a lot of cat shadows, like shadowy cats here and there, which used to vanish.
Mm-hmm.
And I couldn't even talk to anybody about that because then people will think that I am like crazy or something.
Nah, don't worry about that. Just keep it to yourself and just keep learning. That's what it is. But I just that this one point at 11, like uh yeah, what I'm sharing with you is that for just the having that, it's just that, yeah, there's something actually really there.
Even I feel it. Can you even feel spirit of dead people who died earlier? Like spirits of close people, people who were close to you. 2 times I saw a spirit of my dead brother. I saw him 2 times.
So do you
And
okay.
and actually what happened was I was like studying and I just felt it that, and I suddenly felt like crying because I was missing him and he was dead. So I suddenly screamed, Mom, I'm missing my brother. And she said, he died today. Actually, I was quite small, so I didn't remember what was the actual date, but I felt, and then my mother was horrified and she didn't tell me because I had an exam. And when I came back and she said that, do you know what you did today's morning? He died today and then you were screaming that you are feeling him. So she was sad that maybe his soul is not yet liberated from the earthy plane and he's still there. Even after like 10 years of his death. She was scared at that time. So maybe there is
But
something.
my question to you is like, how do you feel about that?
I don't know. I feel confused. I saw his spirit one time again and he just said, sister, and then he vanished. And I was like, I always feel very sad when such things happen.
Mm.
You should try to communicate with him. You should. That's the best way for you to make what you've seen become real. You could use a method where you take a glass bowl, like just a regular glass bowl, without no designs or anything on the glass, and put water inside this bowl, and you can have a white candle, and you pretty much sit there. They use that method. It's called a boveda, in the Spanish system of like Santeria, or
Right.
it's a communication between you and the spirit in the spirit world. So if you want to know or find the reality of what you experience, then it's basically up to you to go consciously into that state, because what you've experienced before was not you were not conscious of what you were doing. But now
Yeah.
that's the importance of what we're learning, is to making our quote unquote magical self be conscious of everything that we do. So in order for you to find out basically the reality of that, you can use certain techniques. You don't even have to use a water or a candle, but those tools make it sets an atmosphere.
Intention.
Yeah, it sets a serene atmosphere for that type of communication. And then you sit and you communicate and ask your brother, or ask the spirit of your brother to come forth. And you ask, what do you seek? Is there anything you seek? Is it, and question yourself, is it me? Was it me? Did I want to see my brother? Or you know what I mean? Because it can be many things. The brain is a powerful tool. So it could do a whole
I was
bunch.
studying for exam in the morning. I was studying for my exam in the morning. I was in class 10 and I was studying for my exam. I was like, okay, okay. And suddenly I felt it, a very strange sadness out of the blue. That's how it happens. All these things happen out of the blue when I'm not expecting it. So
So
it
this
might
time
be
around,
real.
all you do is consciously go into that. That's meditative. That's trance. Go into that consciously and try to communicate.
But sometimes, even like, I have even experienced some spirits who have fooled me into believing things which were not real. They have fooled me many times. Like
Is
out of
it,
the blue, I channeled some. I used to do automatic writing at one point, like 1.5 years back. And I was like channeling a lot of stuff. I just received a lot of energy and I started writing. So 50% of the time it was true, but 50% of the time it wasn't. And
so what?
many times some negatives, I thought it was some sort of negative spirit which actually uh, was trying to was trying to distract me from the path I was working on by giving me wrong signals and like wrong messages, wrong signs. So how will we know that the signs we are receiving are actually authentic, are not meant for distracting us? I struggle with it a lot because I get both type of signs, which are both distracting and also true.
I think you
Interpretation
have
and
to find.
misinterpretation of spirit has a lot to do with the receiver. So
Misinterpretation.
yes, it has a lot to do with the receiver. Deception is not as easy on the higher realms because you're closer to a clear signal. The only reason that you would be deceived is if you're not receiving or mistranslating what you're receiving. When you go into the astral, it's very difficult to disguise or hide your feelings and emotions or thoughts, because I mean, we're getting into the realm of where telepathy happens and things of that nature. So
in initiation, now I got another question. Now in this book, Initiation into Hermetics, I don't know which page is it, but it is mentioned that on the lower level of the astral plane, there are some some bad spirits actually, and they are trying to distract humans. So it just struck me that maybe, you know, some spirits which are lying on the low level of astral plane are like who are trying to lure human beings into something which is not good.
okay, so check it out. If existence exists as it is, if everything is as it is, where in its proper place, whether something is high or low entirely depends on your perspective. Is that true? In other words, if you're only operating from the physical body, then everything looks like it's above you. Operating from Kether, everything looks like it's below you, or rather, everything looks like it's a part of you. So if you feel disconnected and separate and able to be deceived, that indicates where you are. You see what I'm saying? So if you're operating from a higher plane, you cannot be deceived.
So are there any deceptive spirits out there?
None that I know
Or
of.
is it all my own misinterpretation of the vibration?
Everything is as it is. It is as it is. So if you receive it in a certain way, that's you receiving it. So the work to be done is to orchestrate and modify how you judge things so quickly, number one. And number two, to build your library of correspondences. Because sometimes it's not that you're being deceived or misinterpreting, it's because your library isn't wide enough to allocate what you're receiving in its proper place. Does that make sense?
Okay, so how to do these two things now?
Study.
How to do these two things, like right and developing that right interpretation, and then the library of correspondences, like the research, I think.
This is a direct result of study and practice. Through study, you begin to amass a library of correspondences and experiences. And through practice, you begin to amass a library of experiences and interpretations. So a great piece of advice would be to not jump to conclusions so quickly in your early walk. It is literally okay to not understand or not be able to judge something. Sometimes it's all right to just let it be and come back to it a little bit later. Sometimes we hit a roadblock and we say, oh, I can't. Oh, this is blocking me. Oh, you're putting a judgment on it. And you solidified it for yourself. An alternative would be to observe it and acknowledge, I don't understand what's going on right now. Leave it there and get more study, more practice. You can always come back and figure out what it was. But to judge it right then and there, you're limiting yourself.
And that also comes with doing the meditations that was presented in there, where you're sitting, starting off with the 5 minutes, and you're slow, and you're only thinking about one thought at a time. You got to continue that practice where that thing becomes an automatic reflex in your life. So where when you do encounter something, and also like Travis said, that you have your point of reference is more broader. So now you're not easily cast into, like you said, that judgment, that doubt, that overthinking the process and stuff like that. Because basically, I'm gonna just say those are the demons that you're creating. You can just you can call it as the demon of self-judgment that's blocking the path to create. That's all these meant. So all of these papers that we got, in all these books in the Solomon and stuff, that's his mental interpretation, or that's the author's mental interpretation of what was in his consciousness at that particular time. We're now in this particular time, we create our own heaven and hell through the concepts and perceptions that we've accumulated throughout our life. But from basically what you got to do is sometimes you got to go backwards to go forwards. You got to go back to that step where basically you're sitting in meditation, and what you're doing is you're trying to eliminate that process of constantly going into this courtroom and trying to delegate, was this thing real? Was this not? Was it me? Was it the spirit? Was it something when I was a kid? You got to balance your thought and be in control of self, because it's all about self mastery. Because nobody is going to be able to give you the answer that you really need. All anybody can pretty much do is give you another point of perception, and sometimes that'll lead to more questions, more doubt, more judgment, more this, if you haven't found that balance. So a meditation process is see yourself as the tree, see your right foot as the right pillar, see your left foot as the left pillar, see your spine as the middle pillar, and see yourself within all the aspects and the spheres of the tree, balancing your inner thoughts of the mind, because it's going to do nothing. You're going to keep creating more demonic forces, more guardians, and basically the guardians of demonic forces are it could be greed, it could be a judgment, it could be doubt, it could be fear. That's pretty much what it is. And then whatever face that you want to put on those things becomes the actual entity of what you were experiencing. So just go back to that basic meditation of getting and gaining the control of the thought impulses. Like Travis said, the impulse to automatically question and judge what you're experiencing. Once your foundation is sturdy, because Malkuth is not the foundation. Yasad is the foundation. Earth, or that realm of earth, is basically where you're at. It's your sensations, your passions, all of these electromagnetic animal spirit. You have to go beyond the animal spirit to get into the spiritual realm, and that only comes with eliminating those self-doubt.
So actually, like
Hey,
in
Yolanda.
some books,
Go ahead.
It's always written that there are some negative entities who will overpower you. So it's not like, it's only from our own judgments and our own perceptions such entities are formed. The spirit realm, as Travis just mentioned, that at the higher level, nothing can be actually deceptive. It has to be as it is.
Exactly. You
Yeah.
create the archetypical selves that is either going to govern you or they're going to overrule you. You create the that's what and I'll just say this, I've always told people, you definitely got to study psychology, because that's dealing with the earth element of yourself, basically your mental state. So we got to begin to learn. That's what Jung was all about. Carl Jung's process was all about the archetypes. Those archetypes, through his study of mystical essences called the occult and arcane, he just put that together. But like, well, damn, well, all of these different maladies of the mind, or these conditions that we're calling, they're pretty much nothing but mystical symbolism that's basically laying dormant within the mind, within the genetic structure of ourselves. And that's another thing. That's a whole nother story, that we carry genetic memories of past generations, but we first got to deal with our own conscious memories, so we're able to stand firm enough on our convictions of truth. So then we go to the next path, and then that's when we're now going to be able, as Trav said, we're going to the higher realms where it's only going to be truth there, but you're going to have to be able to be able to carry first your consciousness where we're at right now into the next realm, because there is no separate consciousness. You have one conscious. you're able to activate it on multiple different realms, so you can tap into that different level of comprehension. But the beginning stage is making sure that while you on the 7th division, as it calls it in the Kemetic tree, you're in the division basically of the animal spirit. You got to be able to be in control of your reptilian brain, of your mammalian brain, of your cerebral cortex. That's why you got to study psychology, and diet is also excellent too, because that's basically a toxic diet makes toxic blood. So now that flows through your system, and so on and so forth. But basically, you got to start with that inner meditation to put under submission the impulsive thought processes that just bombard you like fucking bombs.
Right.
That's what the initiation is all about, training our minds to be.
That's what the education is about. That's also why the shadow work is so important. That's also why what Franz Barden is teaching is so crucial for these beginning steps. Because as Django said, you can ascend to the higher levels, but you can also bring the funky humanity with you. And in doing so, you're only going to get so far. This is why they have left-hand path and a right-hand path, but only the middle path gets to Kether. Because if you bring duality with you in the higher realms, you're going to see duality, right? If you go up there thinking, oh, this is a cosmic war against the reptilians and the archons and the demiurge, you're literally going to stop there. That's your ceiling. You're going to find the demiurge and the reptilians and the Pleiadians, and you're going to be stuck in duality. Or you can be someone who can have the ability to observe a different idea without accepting it. You see what I'm saying? Just because you hear about something doesn't mean it's true. So they may say, oh, well, there's these demons that are going to deceive you. And it talks about how Andros may turn on the wizard. Well, the only way for you to know for sure is if you experience it.
You know what's a good movie that kind of showed that? Groundhog Day.
Ooh.
He couldn't get back to the reality of himself until he put under submission his bull crap.
Mm-hmm.
He had to stop being so selfish and self-centered. So what happened is he just started reliving one day over and over and over and over again. Then once he realized that he was reliving his day, now he tried to manipulate it, and he tried to do things that, and that stuff didn't work. Then he started experiencing death while he was there. He couldn't save the dude from dying being frozen to death because that was his destiny. So now he had to begin to accept things that he could not change. He had to experience those things, and then he had to come back to his own self and realize, I can't change this outward movie that's going on. Only thing I can change is myself. Once you put yourself under submission, then you go and everything starts to flow, and then you receive really what you want to receive. That's when the Sarasara starts to now pour down, because some people think that they've opened the crown chakra. What they've only really did is, you know how hard it is just to get to the Anahata? You gotta go through, first of all, you gotta get out of the Muladhara before you even get to the solar. Some people get to the solar center and think that they're feeling love when they're only feeling lust, or they're feeling likes, or they're feeling attachment to things that make them feel good. So that's the whole thing. We have to be able to recognize ourselves. And that's why in the book it said we're supposed to be hard on ourselves, not hard on everything else outside of ourselves, on people. We're supposed to have a by ourselves meeting. We're like, man, you gotta get yourself together. Talk to yourself. That's what the Black Mirror is for. Yeah. The Black Mirror, and I have mine sitting right here in front of me on the other side of the computer. So the Black Mirror is for you to look into yourself and look at yourself and have communication. Like, what are you having, and what needs to come out? What needs to be corrected? What are you lying about? What are you trying to hide? So once we come to that foundation, now the reward is you go to the you'll be able to go onto the next step, because everything is stages, degrees, and steps. So like it said in how you have to put your consciousness into other things, like you put your consciousness into a rock, or you put your consciousness into something. What most of us really need to do is attach our consciousness back to basic nature. Go into a forest and go for a walk. And if that forest, if you walk from the parking lot and you're hearing birds chirping and all the sounds of nature and everything, then you enter the forest and you don't hear anything, you're not at one with nature. The nature is now watching you because it sees you as a threat, because you're bringing the energy into that space that's threatening. So once you get your own inner self together and you walk into nature and the birds are chirping and squirrels run right close up to you, or things are still doing what they do, you have now mixed your consciousness with the consciousness of nature, which makes you both the same thing. Or animals, like lizards and stuff. Like I live in Florida. I try to do it with lizards, because lizards will just run away as soon as it feels you, because they feel the vibration of the ground of you walking towards it. So the more I practice this thing, I can get closer and closer to the lizard, but eventually it still runs away, which shows me I have not blended my consciousness with it.
So you are trying to say that if the energies that we are experiencing that are working against ourselves, they will stop working against ourselves once we improve something within us. Yes. By working on it. Yeah.
Yes.
Or how about even looking at it from this perspective? They never were working against you in the first place. You only perceived it as such.
Yeah, introduce yourself to it.
Mm-hmm.
Say, well, welcome, and who are you? That's a part of you. That's a part of your brain that's, or your mind, I should say, that's that you're ready to deal with, but you didn't even know you were.
And Anya, did I pronounce your name correctly?
Yes, Ananya it is.
So, in Initiation into Hermetics, on page 129, Franz Bardon basically gives some level of assurity about that whole process, that, doing these exercises definitely help to give us a proper perspective, which is like a primer for like what John and Shango was saying, to be able to not have to deal with so much, I'm gonna use the word fuckery, with dealing with the spiritual path, because we're actually doing these things to balance ourselves out, and one thing he said on page 129 that was really encouraging, even though he was talking about dealing with the elements, but it touches on something that I had asked John about on Thursday, about this thing being about refining one's perspective or gaining a better perspective, so you don't have to deal with just like the limiting perspectives that you get here. And so he says, the harmony of the elements in the body offers a few other possibilities. Above all, the student is protected from all destructive influences from the negative side of the elements. When a student has attained magical he sees all laws all coming into being and passing away in the universe, true perspective. The student is not affected by many ailments and calls forth an equilibrating effect upon his own karma and therefore on his destiny. He becomes with unfavorable influences. So going through this process definitely helps you. Definitely helps you to refine the perspective needed to continue on doing this work.
He gets the right perspective. he gets
Yes.
into the perspective, of experiencing rather than judging that, oh, this is working against me, or oh, this is working for me. He just experiences it as it is without putting labels.
Yes.
Quick question. When it comes to the step 4 initiation emetics, when it's talking about placing your consciousness into certain things, for the people who do have experience in it, when you really have a grasp, what are some things that you have saw through your practice or things that you've noticed of doing that training?
Sorry, I'm having trouble hearing you.
Yeah, me too.
All right, I said in initiation of hermetics, in the step where it talks about placing your consciousness in different things, from the people who've done it and know they've got it, what are some different experiences or things you've noticed while doing the training for you?
I think for me, when I first started practicing that, it really opened the door to, like I said, clairsentience and, you know, mental influence, spiritual influence. You start out by putting your consciousness in inanimate objects like a pen or a book, you know, and when I did it with a book, I'm like, well, maybe, I don't know, maybe I can absorb information if I put my consciousness inside of a book and bring it back, you know. So I started experimenting. Naturally, at the same time, I was working with the Goetia. So in a lot of my practices with Asmodai, I think I was learning how to do this along with astral projection and mental influence all at the same time. I think that it all kind of worked together. But I would definitely say, even if it was just for pretend, it opened up a lot of possibilities for me. Just projecting yourself into the idea of somebody else. Because I don't know you. All I know is how you present yourself to me. So just like reframing, if I were to go into my consciousness and restructure how I interact with that idea of you, that alone can cause, you know, influences on how we communicate. Does that make sense?
No, yeah, that kind of makes sense. But yeah, it does. It does.
Because one thing go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say, is that like once you start doing that, you start pulling different information in from like probably Kether. That's why sometimes when you're in meditation, you get like those random thoughts and they somehow seem to manifest.
Yeah, because they're not so random, right? You've got a target that you're actually pulling from. And also, and kind of touching on what you just said there, you know, like I said, I might have an idea of you. And based on my rigid idea of you, I'm only pulling in certain information. But if I'm able to go into my data, frame how I'm communicating with you, right? And one way to visualize that process is by imagining myself go into you and being you and thinking what I want you to think or what I want you to communicate with me. You see what I'm saying? Like kind of playing with those type of things that alters how and what I receive from you. In other words, before I might have you stereotyped. That means I only get a certain thing from you. But when I do this other process, like step 4, that kind of opens the door to what I can receive from you. Is that making sense?
It sounds like empathy.
Right. That's why I said clairsentience. This is what opens the door to clairsentience.
Okay.
Really, the best way to know this is by practicing it yourself. You know, just do it for the sake of study. You know, maybe not necessarily trying to take over the world on your first day. With the objective of study, just to see if it works, what it actually does. Try it out.
Experiment.
What's funny with that exercise for me, it's basically remembering all the things I used to do automatically when I was a child. It was very easy. So it's a lot of the exercises are, but when I was growing up back home in St. Louis, there used to be like all these rabbits used to be all over my backyard, and I would try to get into their head. And um, and then, but my first success was getting into a squirrel's head and making friends with the squirrel. Now I can't, but then life comes along and it beats it out of you because you told that you're not supposed to do these things or whatever around you. But it's like remembering, I keep meditating to when I was a little girl, when I used to do so many of these exercises already, automatically, really easy. And so it's like getting back into um, a spiritual shape and mental shape, and it's but I keep, when I meditate, I keep going back to when I was a little girl and back to my backyard and back to my squirrel and back to my rabbits. And it's great because it's like I feel so much better when things were simpler.
Yeah. So that actually opens up another possibility, and that's actually one of the ways that I've been using it recently. Time travel within your own self, within your own memory. The tarot cards, when lined up with the astrological wheel, the minor arcana denote specific dates, or at least specific time periods. And one thing that you can do, if you're so inclined, is to meditate on the specific card that deals with a specific time period of your past, and try to even project yourself into your memory, into your past of that time frame. Like, say if there's something that you're going through, if there's some shadow work that you're trying to do, some healing that you need to experience, you could use those cards as a focal point to access a specific time. You know, for example, the period of June 16th, 17th, 18th, that deals with the 10 of swords. You could meditate on that card to go back to that time frame of whatever year that you choose, and use that as a way to kind of connect with some shadow work.
Yes. Yes.
Any random card, or like putting a card in relation to the event that happened at that time? I'm asking, like, how to choose the card for that work.
Each one of the minor arcana line up with a specific date.
Okay.
Yeah. Each one of the minor arcana line up with a specific date. So yeah, each one of the Goetia line up with a certain date. They're all symbols and access points to tap into certain parts of your own mind. But I just threw that out there because that's one of the things that I'm working on, but also using that practice from step 4 to project yourself into another thing. It doesn't have to just be objects or other people. You can actually project yourself into your own past as your former self, as your inner child. You know, you can go back to specific time frames with this practice. This is essentially teaching you how to begin astral projection.
Heavy too. That once you do them cards, they correlate to, like you said, to dates, particular seasons.
Mm-hmm.
And then once you see that, then each entity, so to speak, the Goetia, they pertain to times and months, dates, the seasons. So then once we get through all of this, that's when you can begin a real magical practice. That's when you can now begin to say, I'm going to use such and such of entity to empower a particular work, but then you do it at this time, within this season, within blah, blah, blah. Everything fits. There's a place for everything. There's a time for everything. There's a season for everything. Like when you want to really do inner work and inner cleansing, that's particularly for the winter solstice time. Everything is slowed down. That's why I don't really, I'm not against when people do detoxes and all of this. But I ask some people, well, do you know how your body rhythm reacts to this? Is this the right season for you? Because summertime is the time of growth, of giving forth, bringing forth that heat, that summer, that summer sun solstice energy. The wintertime, everything is slowed down. Everything is going into the ground. You're going inner yourself. So you can use those particular, as Travis said, take those cards and you can create time periods. Magic is very precise. It's very timely. A lot of people only use full moon, new moon, and blah blah blah. That's novel. But when you really get to this thing, it'll be seasonal, and you'll be very broad. You can last the whole. Your magic will last longer. You won't be falling into this, being tossed this way, so on and so forth. But
Yeah,
Even I have heard about that.
Mercury retrograde, and oh, this is happening right now, and oh, I'm all thrown. No, you look at these seasons, and your rituals aren't just for today and for this week and that person. And this notes to what Dion Fortune was saying. You want to take your magic up to a higher level. You want to take it up to a higher echelon, right? You want to bring it up to Kether if you can. But the lower that you go, the lower that you focus, the more temporary, the more your magic is under the influence of cause and effect, right? The higher that you take it, the broader it is, the longer it's going to last.
I have heard the same thing that you.
I was going to say that during this time when we were all locked up and everything, I was waiting for July and to buy a great big brand new calendar. I mean, one that I can put up on my wall for next year. And until then, I was just writing everything down that I want to accomplish and everything. But this is a good time to buy your brand new calendar and then sit down for a couple of days and just, write down what you want to accomplish. And with all this brand new information that we're learning to plan your year, and plan your year personally to how you want the outcome to be for yourself. Because this is what we're all striving to be, is magicians, to form the world that we want for ourselves. So and when you write it, and even if it's just, you may not see the whole year, but maybe just the 3 months and then the next 3 months, that can be, and working with the system. I think that both systems actually, I think you can literally see your life just like change before your eyes and really see the power that you possess by just writing down the first 3 months that you want to see, in your year of next year.
Can I do these next 3 months, like right now?
Yeah, you can.
Yeah, I'm on
I
that.
mean, I was just thinking about it, but I don't see any reason why not.
Copy.
Yeah, I'm always writing down schedules and things like that. So I'm trying to constantly trying to keep things going in my life, and then burning them and things like that. But now I got even more of two more powerful tools now to use in my magical working. So I'm really excited. But you can start anytime you want. Today, if you want.
Everything is about preparation.
Everything's about preparation, exactly.
So that's why I know you have to follow, if you want, like I tend to follow seasons, and I also, because I do certain type of business things, I follow the fiscal year because I do certain type of business stuff, I have to follow the particular pattern of of the close of the business year, of the open of the business year. So, and it's pretty much, you know, when you gotta basically govern, you gotta govern your existence by nature. But when you're involved in particular systems, you have to, of course, govern yourself by whatever pattern. It's like in chapter 4, well, not chapter 4, but section 4, in initiating into hermetics, he says, once you have reached a certain proficiency in these exercises, you can extend them by not only filling the individual body regions with the appropriate elements, but also by compressing
Exactly.
the respective elements in these regions. The procedure is the same as the one basically just described, beginning with the earth element and including with the fire element. Then it goes on into these, he speaks of harmony. And then he says the harmony of the elements in the body offers a few possibilities, and he goes through, you know, all as above all, the student is protected from all destructive influences from the negative side of the elements. And I think Travis might, I don't know if you had read this earlier or you mentioned that that's pretty much once we follow the laws of nature, you become one with the law and nature. So it puts your whole biological system in order.
Mhm.
That's why a lot of people are getting sick from COVID-19, and a lot of people are not. It's basically a mental state. It's basically anybody who was already living a healthy, prepared lifestyle in the first place. You're not going to fall victim to dis-ease. You're not going to be. You're going to walk around without a mask and not worry about some kind of biological terrorism coming up, attacking your system with COVID-19. That's not even in my reality. Some people see that as a part of their reality, so they fall victim to the trap. So now, as soon as they go home and get a scratchy throat, they're instantly, oh, I hope I think I got the Rona. Now you didn't spoke that into yourself. You know what your body gonna say? Okay, let's go ahead and fuck with you now. Let's rock with it. So now your sore throat then turned into an extra hard. So now you got a headache now. Now you every moment you thinking about it like, oh God, I don't want to go to the hospital. And so you give a lot of these people who, and I'm not belittling this situation because it's been tragic for families have lost their loved ones. So the whole thing, a lot of the people who passed away killed themselves. They didn't kill them. They killed their self with their mind. They allowed them, and that's with anything. That's why people can overcome cancer and overcome all diseases. They get in there once they face the darkness of the night, when the doctor comes in there with that look on his face and sits down and says, well, you know, I really didn't hope it come to this, but you know, you do have cancer. And you know, and that person faces that and they go through that, whatever they go through, and then they you have a decision to make. You either can keep living your life the way you was living, or you can transform to a different life. But like, you know what, I'm not gonna let this thing take me out here, man. Maybe I need to let me go ahead and get healthy. And now you start rebuilding up your electrical system, and now you win. You become a winner. You become a champion. That's the whole thing. Once a person defeats themselves in the mind, it's a wrap. So once we begin to use all of these particular things, like I said, when the student has attained magical equilibrium, he will find himself in the center of occurrences. He sees all laws, all coming into being and passing away in the universal true perspective. Now you put things in the true perspective. Just having a perspective doesn't necessarily mean it's the true perspective. So you have to put everything under law. That's the only judgment that we should be doing as a king card or a queen card. You should be sitting in wise perspective judgment. Is this wise for me to do, or this is unwise for me to do? It's not to look back and be like, you know, this person is a fool. He's the fool card. He's so whimsical. He's about to step off into the unknown. No, that's for you. Maybe you a foolish king.
Yeah.
You understand? So true perspective is what we all want. Basically, we all want truth. That's the bottom line. I came to that the other night in meditation. I was going through multiple. Sometimes I go into this racing car mode where my mind starts going through everything. It's trying to fit patterns together. And then I slowed that down, and basically one word came to me: truth. And I said, I said, that's basically what we all want. It's not the fact that we want money and we want this. We want the true way to obtain money. We want truth. I want to be able to have the truth of a situation. If there is a way to get this or to obtain a certain thing, give me the truth about it. Don't give me the roundabout way. So basically that's the bottom line. We want truth. We want to know what we're reading in these books. Is it true? But the only way to make these things true is that we have to make it come true. Just because Dorothy found out that the Wizard of Oz was Garbo and he was a phony baloney didn't stop her truth. The truth being that what? You've always had the power within you, Dorothy. She should have felt like a fool, but like, you know what? I done been through all, I done killed this witch, these things. All I had to do was slow down and get my mind right and be like, well, shit, let me focus and see what I can do before I keep trying something else. So we have to basically bring back our true perspectives, you know?
Yes. Yes.
Well, this was what this time was for some people. It was to get their mind right. It was to get them to slow down. And for us who are spiritual seekers, it was for us to do some work on ourselves. Definitely. I mean, I polished off books during this time. I've been trying to get to for 2 years. It's been great.
This has been a great time. This is one of the
Best time.
is our right now for most of us, this is our age of enlightenment.
Exactly.
That's what this is. This is not the dark plague, but for some people, it is. Now they want to, every time I happen to catch a news report, it's miserable. I looked at something that said the bubonic plague is kicking in. I said, come on, man, the bubonic plague? Where's that been at? All of a sudden it's kicking in? Like it's a joke. You know what I'm saying? Like they want, but like I said last week, it's high mastery. Some people are playing a clip-off chess game. They don't want you at peace. They want you in a state of turmoil. They want you pissing on yourself every day. They don't want you doing this here. So, you know what I mean? It's like, that's why you have to be very careful, very not necessarily careful, but mindful of what you eating with your eyes and what you eating with your ears, because that thing goes directly into your inner centers, and that's where that mystical wizardry will work it at. That's where they're gonna Wizard of Oz you. They're gonna have you mixed up. They're like, man, I knew I should have worn my mask. Or, you know, you go out there with people with gloves on. Now you see people driving around with the mask on. Like, it's become an aesthetic. We might as well all walk around with a night outfit on, driving around with that. Anything goes right now. And that's because wizardry has planned it that way. But the more we study, the more we get. Just like I looked at the next page, it says the emanating energy must be increased, deepened, and must become more expansive, that it is more dynamic. This is achieved through the imagination, the power of the imagination, and more profound meditation. They killing people's imagination because they don't use imagination for productivity. They imagine a world of chaotic situations. They use situation, not imagination. So the whole thing,
But don't
those
you
that
think through,
propelled
don't
this
you
activity imagined everybody was going to be in full chaos mode, full worry mode. People is balling right now, and they having verses, music verses against this people on the Instagram. We would have never experienced that. Never, if we wouldn't have been people making money. The government, as we know it, is in full shambles. They throwing money from the Small Business Association. They get, man, there's people right now getting $100,000s of dollars, telling you got to pay it back in 30 years. If you not seeing the destruction of this system and opportunity within this, then you ain't, you're in the wrong place. So especially with dealing with this type of stuff, and this is to empower us, Trav. So you can be teaching finance, you can be teaching finances, you can be teaching YouTube 101. But that may put you now in a spotlight that you don't even want to be in. Like, oh, wait a minute, this person, the guy's talking about hermetics. Now he's talking about finances. Now your YouTube channel getting shut down every Thursday now. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Because if you watch, they're doing that to people. They're shutting their YouTube channels down for a day because at the same time as we balling, they got the gatekeepers are watching. So we got to be mindful in what we do because we're heading into deep waters. You know what I'm saying? So it's all about getting ourselves together and emanating our energy or increasing our energy output.
So I have a question. My question is this. When you're dealing with this, you do the NRP. Does she? We may have not gotten into it yet, but does she also end off with the banishing of ritual of the hexagram after this?
No, she doesn't really get into that in this book.
Okay. Because I always
However,
thought
I would
about
like to
rituals
point out,
off with the hexagram. He doesn't end the ritual with it, huh? All right.
I would like to point out another, what is it? I guess similarity here. How Franz Barton in step 4 was talking about, becoming more into alignment with nature. Well, we also have Dion Fortune discussing this very same thing. Here, chapter 16, verse 10, about halfway through on page 117. How she talks about, again, a big part of this is to come into alignment with nature versus trying to work against it. And she says here, nature is greater and truer than conventional morality, which is often nothing but taboo and totemism. Happy the people whose morality embodies nature's laws, for they shall lead harmonious lives and increase and multiply and possess the earth. Unhappy the people whose morality is a savage system of taboos designed to propitiate an imaginary Moloch of a deity, for they shall be sterile and sinful. Equally unhappy the people whose morality outrages the sanctity of natural process and in plucking the flower has no regard for the fruit, for they shall be diseased of body and corrupt of estate. So this is kind of taking it back to what Django was saying as far as the seasons, the moon, and working in harmony with how nature is. Yes, you can do what you want, but there is an added benefit with flowing with nature, right? Understanding what the energy is symbolically meaning with the full moon or a waxing, waning new moon, right? To do certain things during the daytime or the nighttime, during the summer or the winter, right? Most importantly, to analyze your own self and your own cycle, because everything in physical incarnation is governed by cycles and patterns. And if you notice these patterns, if you notice these cycles, you work within them instead of upsetting them, you're going to manifest much rapidly. You're going to manifest much more abundantly. Now, that's in contrast to people who just try to stick with rules and obligations and quote unquote laws that don't flow with the cycles of humanity. That usually ends in destruction. That often ends in corruption and disease. So you've got a lot of things being said right now to do to protect you that don't go with nature. And we wonder why, following these rules, we only end up sick or broke. Nature's laws and rules don't really change. They've been here longer than us. So it's usually a good idea to go along with what nature says versus what some old white guy in a suit said on the news.
Exactly right. And that's why they want everybody, that's why they wanted everybody to stay in their homes. That's unnatural. That creates
Not getting any vitamin D.
That creates an unnatural state for the human being, covering your mouth, you're exhaling more carbon dioxide. Your people don't even realize that you eliminate waste through your exhale. You just don't just exhale carbon dioxide, you're exhaling waste from your biles through your mouth. So the whole thing is, the more they create this disease or this diseased state of mind and state of being, they're able to implant what they need to implant. The more people in the house, the more they're watching the news, the more they're watching the television, the more they watching this, but also because nature has to balance itself. The more people are in the house, the more people are researching. You know how many people have found out who Bobby Hemmett was from being trapped up inside the house? How many people have discovered Trav? How many people have discovered panic and discovered all kind of stuff, all these books? That wouldn't have happened if they would have been in the rigmarole of 9 to 5. So at the same time that it was off balance, the off balance create the balance. The balance creates the off balance. It's a pendulum. It has to be like that. As above, so below. The above, meaning that when creation began to move, it was in a state of static. Then it became astatic, and then it became form again. And then that's why it's a lightning flash. You're only gonna see this thing for a split second. It's gonna be like boom, boom. And also within the lightning flash, if you in the way of this lightning flash, you're gonna get your ass burnt.
Yeah.
You're gonna be sizzled out. So you have to be within your own place. Basically, like I said earlier, you gotta be in your own state of foundation. Once we lose our foundation or the grip upon our own personal reality, something or someone is going to drop their reality upon you. And most of the time it starts with your family members. I knew you shouldn't have been reading those books anyways.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? That's all Trav do. He got all them devil books over there and all, you know what I'm saying? Because you know families love to cast you into the devil realm all the time. Every time you mess with something that they not into, you messing with the devil.
I just say yeah now, man.
Nigga, I'm happy they cast me in the devil realm, man, if they would do that shit, man. I'm so fucking happy that the devil is not a bad guy to me anymore, man. It feels so freaking liberating.
Yeah.
It feels good to be the devil, man. It feels good to be the devil. Hell yeah.
So
I was gonna say real fast
always
too.
cast this negative light on everything. That's the world. That's this earth. This earth is It's emotional.
Right.
You know, it's made to create an attachment to the perceptions and to what the perception is then going to now, if you're not strong, is going to now disturb your inner self, and now you're going to become emotional, which meaning basically emotions means it puts your energy in motion. So now you going into energetic motion, like now you all screwed up.
Right.
You know, so
I was gonna say too, man. I don't know if anybody else noticed, but look at some of the people that like to wear those masks and stuff a lot too. Start looking at their lips, man. I'm starting to notice that people's lips are getting more blue, and I'm like, dang, man. First diabetes and syphilis, and now they trying to suffocate us, man. What's going on, brother?
It is what it is.
Right.
It is what it is.
Because you're not getting your oxygen saturation is being lowered by breathing. Anything that obstructs your breathing slows down your oxygen saturation rate.
It does, and it's already been compromised from years from other attempts as well. So we got another one that's going to even compromise it even more, man. I mean, you got to be vigilant, man. Don't wear it if you ain't got to.
And that's what it is. I'm not telling people don't wear a mask, because it has a purpose, but you're supposed to time frame yourself of when you have this mask on, because once you study oxygen saturation based off of body mass,
right,
and add timing and physical motion with that thing, and you realize that you only got a certain amount of capacity that you can intake exhalation breath back in you. It's not being recycled. You're not getting a fresh, crisp breath. So a person that's been getting 83% oxygen saturation, they may be lowered down to 55%. So what do you think that's going to do to you for 3 months of continuously doing that?
Right. And then if you survive that, they throw some more murders on there to fuck with your fucking emotions some more and shit.
So that's the whole thing. And then we don't want to mention chemtrails, because they steady spraying that. And we really don't know what's really going on with that. But I know that they're basically trying to block. They're not going to black out the sun. They're trying to block out particular UV rays from entering into the atmosphere. So the whole thing is we gotta be mindful, and that's what it is. We actually are not just magi. It's about being a scientist. You have to be a scientist of life, an alchemist, to know how to basically govern the elements of your molecular structure. You basically, if we was to go above and outside of the physical realm and look down, all of us would be nothing but a one-celled amoeba in a big Petri dish. We're just a speck. Man has placed more importance upon his physical self than his spiritual self. So we think we dominant over everything. We're not even, animals know how to live. They're not affected by COVID. A stray dog on the street is completely healthy without a mask, and they eat garbage. So, you know what I mean? It's about that balance, man. And
right.
We're
like
losing.
how Planet said it one time, man. He said, this is a food chain. This is continual cycle and shit of everybody eating and shit on a fucking different level and shit. You know what I mean? So it's deeper than rap, man.
Exactly right. And this is all nothing but a vibration of what particular, because as we all travel the path of our tree, we're also in a tree. Whether it's called the government, whether it's called community, whether it's called society, whether it's called family, whatever it's called, those things are trees. So we're all a part of a tree, as a tree, in a tree. So we all following this path. So now we got to be able to look at this thing as a whole, because of Travis, like he said, because Travis gives us all the clue. He gives us the pattern, set your cards up in the pattern of the tree, and then set it up. I haven't done that, the circular one. Set it up. You will actually be like, oh shoot, this is where we at right now in this particular. You will start seeing it in reality.
Right. And see, what I've noticed is there's things that you're not going to figure out unless you sit down and do these practices. There's things that's not in these books that you only come to the conclusion when you lay these cards out. Now, I'm doing this every single day. First thing I do when I get up, I line these cards up and I just observe. Some days I don't get anything. Some days I do. You begin to see relationships. You begin to see from a personal perspective what Dion's talking about as far as Asaya, Yetzirah, Bria, Atziluth. What is this all about? They're not just four arbitrary trees. Look at the cards. Look at the meaning of these cards. Look at how they relate to each other. Look at the whole tree, what kind of energy all those wands have. And then as we're going through, we learn about Chokmah, right? We learn about how Chokmah is the Yod and how that tree of Atziluth is the Yod. So all those fire wand cards has everything to do with a penetrating masculine energy. That completely describes what's going on in the spirit realm. Do the same thing with studying Bria, right? That we learn everything that's going on in the mental realm. Same thing with Yetzirah. That's everything going on in the astral realm. You'll notice that the astral realm is very chaotic. It's very, almost like a warfare going on. And that's probably why so many people feel like we're at war. You know, we're at war with the government and the police and the archons and the demiurge. It's because the astral plane feels that way. But guess what's right on top of Yetzirah? Bria. Nothing but love and emotions. Oh, okay, one of those cards has a bunch of swords going through a heart, but that's just one. As a whole, it deals a lot with the flow of these emotions. And when you line those cards up in that circle and you really put it together with time, it's a clock. And if you know how to do it correctly, you can start to figure out what time travel is. But I'm gonna leave that for later.
Yeah. Yes, indeed.
You're exactly right. And that's what's happening. While the wands are actually being broken in the system. You look at the government, if you look at the governmental system was wands.
Right.
Masculine force, power, coming through, piercing you with delegation and this. All of that stuff is being torn apart. So when you start getting mass movement from people and they're protesting in a particular way, that's opposition to that system. So that right there is those actual realms, the veils between those realms are being slowly giving you a look behind them, but you have to be able to notice those subtle changes. Most of us, most people just see it as just things that are happening. But if you see it with spiritual eyes, you'll realize like, oh shoot, this is the veil of Bria that's showing forth through the veil of Asiya right now, or Yetzirah. It's all, the veils are very thin, especially right now. Veils of we just had a veil was removed the other day when you was able to see Pluto with your bare eyes. Most people didn't realize you will never see that again. So that right there was showing you something, that alignment is giving you an opportunity to look at that from a particular perspective, like, oh, okay, now I see Pluto was bearing itself, was showing us these uncovered energies that keep manifesting as troubles here on this planet. But if people didn't catch that, then it went right by them.
Hey Trav, quick question. We reading the mystical Kabbalah by Dion Fortune, right?
Most days.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure because I just got that one too.
Yeah, currently we're on chapter
5?
17.
Chapter Oh, 17. Oh, for the mystical Kabbalah or for the initiation? I'm
Mystical.
looking at the, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Okay, yeah.
You know, we got people joining this group all the time, so everyone's not on that chapter. But I mean, while we're here, if you or anybody has questions about anything, it's not like, you can't discuss it.
Yeah, no, it's cool. Like I literally just got those books via PDF, and I'm just trying to catch up as quickly as I can, at least so by next week Sunday, I would have at least gone through. At least I would have gotten up to like 5 by next week. So
Yeah.
just trying to.
And if you don't have access to the notes that I've been taking, you can use those as well. They might help to, put
Okay.
something in a different perspective.
Well, you sent them via email?
Are you on the Major Society website?
I am.
Okay.
I am.
I have a group for both books, and I've got hell. I'll just send it to you on Instagram.
Okay. Yeah, man, I'm getting caught up again and stuff. Now that I got the books and stuff,
Yeah.
I'm good now. Major Society. You talk about the app, Trav?
Yes.
Oh, yeah. I'm on the app right now. Let me go to the group. But yeah, y'all go ahead, though. Y'all go ahead. I didn't mean to interrupt. I was just saying. I'll be in the background listening most of the times anyway.
Yeah. So, I'm sure that nobody feels this way, but I hate for this to just be a bunch of speculation and talk. We've got enough of that on the internet. One of my major goals is to make this information practical, or to help you see how it can be practical in your specific life. And to some people, maybe that process seems slow, but trust and believe, if you're following along in these 2 books, little by little, you're beginning to see how it applies to your real life. And by the end of these books, it's all going to make sense. The reason that Franz Barton is like going slow with these meditation exercises is he's got an end in mind. Always remember that both of these books, there's a goal at the end. So just trust and follow what these authors are teaching. Franz Barton is starting out with, hey, just learn how to focus and learn how to envision yourself as something else. This is going somewhere. It's building upon, self-deification. It's building upon building your astral body. It's building upon learning how to perceive these higher realms. With Dion Fortune slowly talking about these spheres and the patterns and the paths, by the end of it, you're going to have a much more comprehensive understanding of how the universe operates. We're not taught this stuff. We're not taught that. This information you have to go out and get. So trust the process. It might seem slow. It might even seem boring to some people, but just follow along. Just follow along. It's definitely leading somewhere. And for me, this is about my second time around, and I'm getting so much more the second time than I did the first time.
That's something that pops up in my meditation a lot. Trust the process. Trust the process.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And one of the things that would really help is if we let go of this idea of time, of the temporal constraint. That's one of the biggest factors in magic that cause people to fail, because they think that, oh, I'm gonna invoke this entity and I'm gonna get these results. But if it doesn't happen when you say it's supposed to happen, you think, oh, I failed, or oh, I'm not getting a response from the spirit, or it's not working. No, you're just being impatient. This is a process. Trust the process. Work with it. When people ask me, oh, how do I use this entity to do this? My new answer is it doesn't work like that. Like, you legit have to build a relationship with these entities. And I don't mean you're taking them out on picnics and going and watching Netflix. I mean, you're spending a little bit of time on a regular basis getting acquainted with the energy. Now, if you're in a hurry, it's going to seem like you're wasting your time and not getting anything done. But if you take time away, it's just like college. You go to school, you study, and eventually you get a degree. when you're working with these spirits, you go through a gradual process of becoming acclimated with the energy. And after it's all said and done, you now understand how to use the powers of Vasago to interpret the tarot cards, or Bimea, right, to fill your bank account with money from different sources, or Asmodai or King Payment or whatever. It's not a wham bam thank you ma'am. It's a process. You're opening yourself up, because before all this, you're just like everybody that we make fun of, you know what I'm saying, or everybody that we talk about, blind, following the crowd, don't know anything.
You know, it's funny that you say, oh, I'm sorry.
Put in the time, put in the process, and this stuff starts to make itself open to you.
Yeah, Trey, I was going to say that it's kind of funny because, you know, everybody likes to say, and I'm one of them too, you know, that say, oh, how can I use this demon for this and this for that, you know? But the thing is, the average human being that you're getting to know, you wouldn't treat them like that. You understand me?
Ooh,
Like
check
if you
that out.
saw a chick that you liked and stuff, you wouldn't just go straight for trying to smash her, even though that's possible nowadays. But you know what I mean in general. You understand? Like you're not just gonna go straight for the, you know, take your clothes off and all that shit. You get to know her, you chop it up, you chill, then
Right.
it becomes Netflix and chill. You understand me? You know, and they open up to you more and more. But you know, with the spirits, I guess it's like you think you could just command them to do it right now and all of that stuff. So I think, yeah, that's where we got a little mixed up, you know.
Right, right. And just like a member of the opposite sex can basically smell your intentions because they're dripping off of your poorly constructed plan, the spirits can do the same, right? It's a whole different game when you're
Facts.
approaching a member of the opposite sex. You may want to have a sexual encounter, but that's not even on your mind. You're legit spending time with them just for fun, just to hang out, just to get to know them. It's a whole different game when you're not pressured into trying to get it, because it's going to come if it's supposed to. And if not, hey, you met somebody cool. That's a whole different game. Likewise with these spirits, there is no lie and no deception in the higher realms. So if you're like, oh, well, I'm just trying to win the lottery and work with the spirit to do such a thing, you might be fooling yourself. But yeah, you're right. That's a great comparison.
You know, some Trav, do you can you read through I don't know if it's the same page in the physical book, the initiation into hermetics, step 4 on my page is 252. It's the it's talking about the magic symbol of. Let me go back to the magic schooling of the physical body.
Mm-hmm.
But it's give me 1 second to find back. Go back to the page that I was just on.
Which paragraph?
Hold on, give me 1 second. I just lost my whole page. Page 252. There's no number. It just says the true because it's hold on. It's actually.
I got that highlighted.
It's actually, you have that highlighted?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. But I think that's important. I want you to, can you read through that?
Yeah. The true magician is not influenced when he reads in various books of how some other magician draws his magic circle and considers it to be the symbol of infinity, divinity, and untouchableness, or how he transfers his genies and angels into the circle for his protection, or how a lama draws his mandala and during his rituals considers the Thatagatos as the symbol of the guardian deity. A magician does not require instructions that are foreign to him. He is well aware that these are only focal points for ideas and memory aids in the spirit.
Mm-hmm.
That part?
Yeah. I think that's what, well, basically that whole thing, because when I down where it says many magicians accomplish considerably more with the most primitive rituals than those the philosophical speculator with complicated acts of worship. There were no specific guidelines, and the students must act intuitively and must understand how to express any idea, any train of thought, as well as what he suggests to have realized in the form of a suitable gesture, finger position, or through a ritual. I think basically what we were talking about earlier when Ananya was mentioning, about the different deities of the path, and it's that stuff. That right there is pretty much what's explaining it. That when it says that the student, his genies and angels into the circle. So and like you just said, when you put the circle together, and whatever particular energy that you choose to bring about, whether you're trying to bring in money or you're trying to bring in, whatever it is, you have to be learned enough that you go intuitively, not be influenced by all these particular books that we read. These books are just points of reference that basically, it's like I used to read a lot of grimoires, and a lot of grimoires are basically put together based by other grimoires and make big this. So you don't take those books to the point where you think that book is the book, that you got to follow all of this stuff to the letter. No, I'm supposed to take. It's just like a fruit tree. Every fruit on the tree is not going to be good to eat. You're only going to be able to eat certain fruit that's on the tree. They don't all get ripe at the same time. The ripest fruit is at the top of the tree. So the whole thing is we got to be able to take these books and take what's ripe, take that, add it on, and then we utilize our own system. So even though we know French barter is an excellent resource, we don't become barterites.
Right.
You understand what I'm saying? We don't become fortunites, because the unfortunate is an excellent resource. That's where a lot of people, they get caught up in. They become barterites. They become whatever, and they stick right there.
Right.
So it becomes dangerous. Those kind of people are very dangerous, because they become fanatics and fanatical in their works. I tend to stay away from those kind of people who, as soon as you say something, they quote from one particular source all the time. They don't vibrate any higher than one book, one demon. They go to one demon.
Oh, that's the worst.
Like an Ifa, a lot of sisters, boys, it's a lot of Oshuns out here. That's one of the most overworked.
Yeah.
That is so overworked. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, let me rock though. Let me rock.
Yo, that is so real, man.
You can't overwork them. You know what I'm saying?
Oh my God. Yo, everybody want to be a shoe. Oh, I'm getting those shoe vibes ever since they saw Beyonce in their yellow dress.
Would you understand what I'm saying? Yo, Smooth, you just killed me, man.
It's funny, you know what I'm saying?
Get stuck on one thing and then that's it. You know what I mean? Like, yo, shooting is cool, but what up all y'all? Let her get some work. You know what I'm saying?
Facts.
King Payman, Payman. But you see this, and it is funny. But even rising above this, if, like you said, if you look into psychology, you can understand why people do it and what type of people are going to do it. So for me, it is funny, but it's more of a study point, because it's a certain type of person who gets stuck there and enjoys being stuck there, and they have their place.
Right. You're right.
I'm just saying. Anything can be done with that. It can be used to help or to hurt. But always be aware.
Right.
Even those people can be helped, if they get stuck on the right thing. But that's not something that everybody wants to do.
Yeah.
That's a lot of freaking effort.
But this book is getting real good initiation into medics, because it actually, as he goes on, he actually goes into the analogy of the 5 fingers. And once you get into you can get into Kabbalah, they also have a hand that's used in the Kabbalah symbolism that they use to correlate that with the elements, but also to relay Kabbalistic messages. I probably have a know I have a picture of it somewhere, but I'm not gonna attempt to go look through my stuff. I was printing shirts, so I'm kind of surrounded by stuff all below me, so I'm gonna stay right here.
Yeah.
But you understand that you know the 5 fingers is he's using that. You know, the index finger is fire and the thumb is water. That right there shows us that our physical body and composition hides the secrets to the occult. We don't have. That's why a lot of this stuff. That's why especially the Kabbalah was given from mouth to ear.
Mm-hmm.
It later on became written. A lot of things had to follow a particular law for certain people to start writing it, because as it transferred from one geographical area to another area, they started writing it. That's no different than Vedic information and stuff like that. It had to be written so it can be transferred to other areas as the time period went on. But basically, if you really wanted to remember Kabbalah and the Tree of Life, you can use your own physical body as each point of the Sephirah, and each pathway exists on your physical body. So if you want to say in Tantra, when they talk about the meridians are actually the paths to the chakra, or particular points of energy on your body, which you can correlate to the Sephirah of the Tree of Life and what they stand for. So we can use our own body as the Tree of Life. I think there's even a spread for tarot cards that you can make the Adam Kadmon with the actual tarot. Because Adam Kadmon is basically the form of the tetragrammaton within man.
Right. Yes, those hand signs is one of many correspondences that psychology and neurolinguistics has with, right? One can look at mudras in the science of these hands and also apply it to what's called anchoring, right? And inciting and initiating certain trance states within the self with simple hand gestures. But it just shows how easily influenced, malleable the framework of the mind is in a given scenario. But it's so malleable that you can even use your fingers, right, to incite a certain mind state. And I think if you were to go into what Franz Martin said about charging your body or your hand or eventually objects with different elements, and maybe even anchoring that to his suggested fingers, that might give you some proficiency.
I want to ask you, Chad, what do you think about actual initiation? You know, like it mentions that as we go along, the individual can initiate themselves. But what is your thoughts on actual initiatory systems? You think it's necessary, or not necessarily? Do you think it's necessary? But what is your thoughts on initiatory systems?
There's certainly a place for it. It certainly can be a benefit. The only problem with today is finding a system with people who have integrity, because even Fortune mentioned here about with the gurus, and she mentioned why it's good to have a guru, because when you train under a teacher or you become initiated, they're able to actually transfer that spiritual connection they have directly onto you, which by default means you learn faster and you bypass a lot of the roadblocks. So when actually becoming into initiation through a reputable group and a reputable source, you kind of get access to whatever that guru has access to. But like I said, the whole thing nowadays is finding a group with integrity or a person with integrity.
But don't you think the more you do this work, you may attract the group or the person to you eventually? I mean, it might not happen, through the years.
If that's in your path, then yes, you know. I wouldn't say it's absolutely necessary to be initiated, but it's in some people's path, it's not in others.
Yeah.
If you're asking, like, do I think it's valid? Yeah, I would say so in certain scenarios.
Hey, yo, Troy, I got a quick question. I was just wondering about like how in linguistics it talks about like how getting your body involved. I was wondering in this kind of practice, they don't really talk about like your body movements and while doing certain things, like for example, astral projection. So do you think, since you have to be still, do you think you can use your body while astral projecting?
While astral projecting?
Yeah.
I mean, from my experience, it works best when my body is still. So that's not saying you can't, it may work for you, but when the body is still, you're not being distracted by it. Because really the premise of really getting into astral projection or soul travel is that you have a physical body. You got a body for all four realms. The only difference is, where's your consciousness? Right now, your consciousness is in the physical body. So if you want to transfer that consciousness up to your astral body, the physical body needs to kind of be dormant. Because the physical body is always receiving input. It's always receiving data from the visual, auditory, kinesthetic, olfactory, gustatory. It's always receiving data. So you've got to go into meditation to kind of detach from that on purpose. Because that higher body has a corresponding five senses as well. And it's very difficult to be tuned into both at the same time. It is possible, but it's very difficult to maintain consciousness in multiple bodies and bring them. That's the thing. We all astral travel, we all project, we all go into these different bodies, but we don't all bring the memories back. The real practice in science is bringing the memories back.
You can crash down. I tried that to maintain two consciousness at the same time between physical and the astral consciousness. But once I got distracted in the physical, so it kind of was like a boom, like I'm coming back to myself, and I kind of like it took me about 2 or 3 days. I had to rest because it actually it kind of wore me out basically, and I think it was because, like you said, it takes a lot. So basically, I wasn't prepared for that. That's Super Saiyan level, right there. Yeah. When you could, I'm not a Super Saiyan, so I kind of like crashed down, and it actually it took a real physical toll on me, to the point where I had to really lay down and drink extra water and really get myself together, trying to bring those two together. But like you said, once you because I've always seen it as overlapping circles, basically how the realms are. You go into the next one and you take your form there and you deal only with that level. So when I tried to do both, it wasn't really it wasn't a good experience at all.
Yeah, I can definitely attest to that and relate to that. That's one of the downsides of astral projection that people don't talk about, probably because people aren't actually doing it. But just recently I had a very similar experience where I came back, because what I've been practicing is you're supposed to really transition back gradually. Because for me, the main thing is bringing the memories back. So I always try to be careful to gradually transition. But there was something that happened where I came back too fast, and that literally put me out for like 2 days.
Yeah.
And I didn't understand at first, but I put 2 and 2 together. A whole 2 days.
And you kind of try to and you kind of brought the memories back, but you really couldn't distinguish between what you brought, like I couldn't distinguish what I brought back, what I was making up. So I just had to give up and like, man, let me just let me lay down. It was like, it was like you go out, like trying to go out and play basketball with a bunch of 15-year-olds out this thing. You can't keep up with them guys. So it just crashed me. Like I said, you got to really, really to do that. It's I don't know what type of individual you really got to be or what you really need to even do that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, I must be doing it. I must be doing it completely wrong. I don't know. I'm not getting those experiences.
KP, your microphone sounds like you are speaking from the astral world right now, brother.
Oh, you didn't hear what I said?
No.
Oh, I said I guess I'm probably doing it wrong because I'm not getting those experiences. So that's what.
I think you just keep practicing, man, and it'll definitely come. And eat right and drink enough water. That's the main thing too. I don't believe in meditating or doing that kind of work I'm not gonna eat pizza and then try to lay down and do meditative work. It doesn't work personally it doesn't work that way for me. I have to make sure that I'm light physically so I can transcend that way. I eat more fruit and stuff or don't eat anything. I just hammer a bunch of water and I prepare myself way before. So that whole day, I'm pretty much trying to keep myself in a calm state. So when I do prepare, because I do a lot, it's more at nighttime with me or early morning when everything is in that stillness, or they call the early dawn, or of course the late night hours. I can do it, but if I was to have eaten a bunch of stuff, it's not gonna be easy.
Yeah.
What method do you use?
You said what method?
Yeah.
You can use the little method. You could to be honest with you, I develop a lot of my own methods the way that I do. I go into a particular form, but what it is basically stillness and mindfulness. And first going through the process of slowing down your actual thought input, slowing that down so it becomes to nothing, where you don't even, because you don't want to, because you don't, it's not bringing anything into the next realm. So I want my thoughts to be under control to the point of no thought. So I go into another particular realm. What I'm bringing only is the consciousness of self. I want the self to be at its purest, at a base level, not me bringing something in so where I'm going to go and judge the experience there now. That's the whole thing. So what my method is basically that, utilizing stillness, that mindfulness. Sometimes I'll even use mantra or bij mantras, or particular words of power, or I could create. A lot of times, sometimes I'll use for whatever I particularly work. It can be a sigil that I'll stare at, or even a candle. But those are different type of trance states right there. And so those are different realms. But it's you want to actually develop a system like even Barton says, a system that basically works for you as an initiate. You will begin to know what you're most comfortable with. Some people may not be comfortable staring at candles but you are going to have to use the one process that's universal is stillness and mind and being in control of your thoughts. That's one thing that cannot be changed.
That
Oh my goodness.
I have a question. It's regarding the tarot cards. While while reading the tarot, like I lay out the cards, I get an interpretation instantly, like, and then after like 1 or 2 minutes, I get another perspective on the same layout, and then I get confused which one I should consider.
Well,
Did you?
yeah, I would, the approach that I'm taking, I know tarot, I've done it professionally, I've studied it, but the approach that I'm taking currently is to get all that and start over from scratch. So I really don't have a reason to be doing readings right now. My whole focus is laying out these cards and deeply getting to know them, right? I'm not using them for reading. I'm using them as a study aid and a meditation aid. And I'm finding that as I'm doing that, I'm pulling out a deeper meaning from these cards. And every now and then when I do a little reading or so, it's different than when I used to do it. You know what I'm saying? What I'm saying to you is maybe it would be a great option for you, especially if you want to get better at tarot. I know you do. Might be a great option to hold off on doing readings for now and just practice memorizing the meanings. Just practice looking at the cards, putting them down, reading the definitions, you know what I'm saying, just studying them. It might be a good practice. Do that for a month or two and then come back to readings. And I guarantee you'll find that you're going to understand what the cards are saying in a more intuitive, in-depth. Like you said, you'll have issues where you got a question, you'll do the cards, and you'll do them again for the same question. You get something totally different. That indicates a few things. But yeah, what I would say is it's probably better to maybe take some time off from doing readings and just study the cards for the sake of knowing what they mean.
I get the same sort of cards the next time. Even if I do the reading 3 times, the same sort of cards come up. But thing is that I interpret them in a certain way, and after a few moments, I get, oh no, I can interpret this another way also, and then I get confused in
Yeah,
both
you're
those
just
things.
setting yourself up for confusion. Why are you pulling 3 or 4 times for one question?
No, even if I put I'm saying that even if I do it like single time, I put the layout.
Yeah.
I get a meaning. Okay, so this is gonna play out in this manner, or the cards are telling me that I am in this energy. But just maybe it's other way around, and then I see a different perspective in the same layout. So that's what is confusing me.
Gotcha.
Different perspective in the same layout.
Okay, so the same cards, but you're getting different interpretations.
Yeah.
Based on what this card mean or what it might mean in this context. Yeah. So again, that's why I would say it's probably better to sit down and study each card individually so that when you do get a reading like this, you know that card. You know what I'm saying? So you're taking the time to study the cards, then you got the Fool card. Then you take, a little bit of time to intensely study what the Fool is all about. If you do that for each one of those cards, then down the line, maybe a month, maybe 2 months after just exploring the cards without reading, just exploring them, month down the line, you do a reading, you're going to have a much better understanding of that card. Context to the question that you asked. Long story short, just take some time to study the cards more.
Okay. So I should read meanings as well, like traditional meanings and intuitive meanings that I have deduced over my experience of reading the cards.
Right.
The bookish meanings and the intuitive meanings that I have derived. I have to understand both.
Right. There's multiple meanings and it all depends on the context. But like I said earlier, You want to expand that vocabulary. You want to expand those correspondences. So depending on the context that you're dealing with, you'll know which meaning applies this time. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Ananya, hi. I'm sorry. I don't know if I pronounced your name correctly.
It's okay.
For you, check it out. And that's for everybody else in the group concerning what Travis is just talking about and what you're talking about. It's helped me a lot. So you can click on the link to discover it. I just sent a link into the chat.
Okay.
It's really going to help you with what you just discussed.
Okay.
It's helped me and I'm using it as well.
Okay, I'm saving this link.
All
Thank
right.
you.
You're welcome.
Oh, nice. Yeah, I learned from this video too. Good shit. Yeah, I learned a lot from this video also.
It's very well detailed. So I enjoyed it. I had to save it in a playlist on YouTube. So when she was speaking about it, because I caught the live the other day when you were, when you spread the cards and according to the tree of life and everything, but this also was kind of like a backup to make me understand it a lot more clear.
Okay, and I just typed the title of it in the YouTube. So look in the YouTube, it's right there. Not you, but the people in the chat. Good shit.
Hello?
Are we still on or?
Yeah, give me just a second. Hold on. I mean, you can talk, but give me a sec. Hecate. Okay.
Trav, I'll catch back up with you on the next week, brother.
All right.
All right, everybody, peace. Be easy.
Peace. All right, everybody. So for the most part, if you haven't, if you're not quite at step 4, you know what I'm saying, keep studying. But what I would highly suggest is do some practice with what Franz Barton was talking about as far as learning how to envision yourself in something else, right? You can start with a small object. You envision yourself as a pen, right? Envision yourself from the perspective of this pen. How does the rest of the world relate being this small, right? How would it feel to have skin like plastic, right? Practice putting your consciousness in another object and really go in depth as far as what it would feel like. And as you practice that, start practicing it with living things, right? You envision an animal, right? You might see a squirrel, you know, climbing up a tree. Envision what that might be like, what life is like from its perspective. And eventually you can move on to other people, right? Envisioning how this person may be thinking or feeling at the moment, what it's like to be that person. Like really practice doing this on a regular basis and just observe what type of changes are happening within you as you're doing that, what kind of observations you're making within you. I think that's probably that's a very important step in initiation into hermetics.
First person point of view. First person point of view.
Yes, exactly. First person point of view, like being the actual thing. Franz Barton suggests with starting with inanimate objects and then gradually working up to living objects. And practice doing something of a different type, like maybe a vegetable, you know, maybe a tree, small animal, a car, a building, right? Play with experiencing existence as a different thing and just kind of take note on what kind of observations you make, right? Most people don't even consider what life is like for another person, right? So it's stuck in their own opinions. That's why I say observe what it does for you by envisioning yourself as other things, things that you feel are completely opposite from you, you know, classes, races, genders. Imagine yourself as something completely different than what you typically identify as, and just observe. Like you said, Ananya, this is empathy, practicing empathy, basically.
So putting yourself in somebody else's shoes, baby.
Okay, I got to go to. I have office tomorrow. Got to work. Bye bye.
All right, thanks for your questions. Thanks for your comments.
Thanks to you as well.
So once you do that, just pay attention to the thought process that you have while you're in that other person's shoes.
Yes.
Or that vegetable shoe.
Yeah, because subconsciously what we realize is that we have a train of thought that's entirely linked to our physical body. We think what we think because of who we are. What happens when we're someone else? What happens if you just pretend with all your imagination that you are actually a different person? Would you be thinking the same type of things? Would you go about your day in the same way? And I think eventually in the long run, what this leads to is showing you that, you know, identity is an illusion, that ego is an illusion, that what you think is you only exists in your head. But that's only something that can only be experienced. I often say things like there are no enemies, there's no individual self. Most of us don't truly experience thought in its pure essence. Those things sound cool, but I mean that when I say that. When you go through these practices, you start to see how much of an illusion you really are. Yes, we're physical. Yes, we're interacting with objects. But when it comes to personality and mental concepts and ego and memory and all these different things, they only exist in one place. And if you explore existence as another person or a place or a thing, that opens you up to considering different possibilities, different realities, different memories.
And then when you get back to yours, you can make different changes.
Hmm?
And then when you get back to yours, your body or your consciousness, you would make different changes that you've gotten from what you practice with other people or other objects.
Right, because you opened yourself to see things differently.
Okay. Copy. Thank.
I'm just checking the chat here to see if anybody had any questions about anything.
I wouldn't really say I have questions. I know we've been talking on and off throughout Instagram and stuff. So I think just coming to the meetings and stuff, it's giving me a bit more clarity. One, that I'm around like-minded individuals, and then two, I just got to get on my shit. This time is wasting. The time isn't wait for anybody. So got to start doing my shit now.
So with time, as you say, is wasting, and you got to get on your shit, what is the next realistic, tangible step for you? What is the next thing that you know that you have to do?
Just reading and doing the work.
Reading what?
Probably the intro into hermetics.
Okay, so if you sit down and read the intro to initiation into hermetics, would you feel a sense of accomplishment as far as doing the work?
I think I would to an extent, but I'd have to do more. I probably want to do more.
Of course, it never ends. Never ends. But as far as your very next step,
yeah, I mean,
that you took that step forward.
Yeah.
When are you going to do that?
Today.
What time?
I'd say I give me 7 o'clock.
Okay.
Yeah, 7 p.m.
Message me when you finish.
I got you. Definitely, I got you.
Right on.
I have a question.
Yes.
In the initiation to hermetics, when they speak about like being careful with your vital energy, like if you try to heal someone and you use your own energy instead of like gathering energy like from the universe or from the source, that you can end up like getting sick or something. Like, how do you make sure you're getting energy from the universe? Do you just have like Kether correspondences, or I don't know?
Okay, great question. So the pore breathing exercises, and this is what I love about Franz Barton. He's showing you how to do stuff gradually. So these pore breathing exercises and these element gathering exercises, it's not just for nothing. This is real. This is how you pull in energy from the universe, and you can transfer it in that same way. So when it comes to healing or transferring information or whatever, instead of you just thinking that it's all you, and by your mind focused on your internal reservoir, you're going to drain yourself. What you do is you actually pull it in from the ether and give it out. So the pore breathing exercise is symbolic, but there's really something going on the higher plane. So if you just apply that same process with the pore breathing or the organ breathing, or just envisioning it coming into you from the akasha around you, that is a process of pulling from a reservoir that's not your own personal reservoir. Because ultimately, when we talk about Kether, there's no separation. All this is me. All this is you. But if you're thinking in a limited way, you only pull from this limited source of energy. But through these pore breathing exercises and things of that nature, we realize that it isn't just me. All these papers around me, these books around me, this food in the fridge, I can pull from all of that to do what I do. So I'm training my subconscious mind to understand that I'm unlimited. I hope that kind of points to it.
Yeah, no, I get it now. Thank you.
You're welcome. And you can use this on yourself. So sometimes, because I know we all feel this way. I felt this way earlier last night. I don't feel like reading. I just want to sit here and fuck off, do nothing, fuck around. But I was thinking, nah, man, we got a mission. We got something to do. Okay, all right. I'm gonna pull in some energy from the universe. So I'm sitting here breathing, charging myself up, envisioning myself upstairs doing the work. So doing that exercise, breathing in, filling myself up. All right, I'm good to go. What happened? You know what I'm saying? Some could say it's a psychological trick, whatever, but I envisioned myself pulling that energy in to energize me. Whereas before, I just felt tired, lazy, whatever.
If I may add, you could also try to search for the audio versions. Some of them are uploaded on YouTube. It could help as something the French call exercice d'écoute. That is, you exercise by listening. At any point in time, if you have your headphones in, which you basically have most of the time probably listening to music or doing something else, or maybe you could just plug it in the auxiliary in the house so you can just speak like a radio. At some point in time, you know what we're talking about here, you know what you're learning. You're going to pick up a frequency of a particular message, which is definitely going to be discussed in the book club. So it's going to give you clarity. And then sometimes you can just use the PDF with it, or if you have the actual book, you follow through as the dictator is speaking on the channel, and that way you kind of feel like you're in an amphitheater, that you're taking a lecture. So I might send a few links into the group of some vocal readings of the actual books and several explanations as well. It could help anyone.
Yes, that'd be appreciated. Most definitely.
You're welcome.
Yeah, good stuff. Good stuff. All right, I'm going to share that link in the YouTube chat as well so people can get it. Oh, wow. So basically, guys, if you go to YouTube and type in Initiation into Hermetics, Franz Barton, there's a 9-hour audiobook. The channel is Mystery Mountain Music. But yeah, 9-hour audiobook. I'm definitely going to save that.
There are several others as well. Some tackle chapters, particular chapters, and some tackle the entire book. But this particular one was just the reading entirely from each chapter and each line. And I think there's one for Mystical Kabbalah as well. That one really put me through, because when I first got the book, I kind of was like perplexed, because all the lingo and everything was very new to me. But with the reading, it was kind of like there were explanations, and on the screen you would click on some of intriguing vocabulary, and it was really nice. It really sped up my learning of the book. So I would send that as well, and anyone can just type any of these books into YouTube, or maybe Google, or maybe Daily Motion. You find so many of them. You don't even have to buy an audiobook on Amazon any longer. If you have a PDF to back it up, it's okay.
Nice. Oh, cool. You can click the link right in the chat. Perfect. All right. So, I definitely would love to be on here all day. especially if people have more questions. Dustin, I haven't seen you in a minute. How's it going? All right, that's cool too. But yeah, if you guys don't have any other questions, then I think I'm gonna get back to studying this book.
I bet I
Wait. One last question, right? Let's say I start doing my reading today. I want to do, 1 to 5. I want to catch up. But let's say I also wanted to do, I think I told you I had the DOM book.
Which book?
Demons of Magic.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I had that one as well. So, sorry, my headset. So yeah, hypothetically, if I wanted to I do my 5 chapters or listen to the Hermetics today and get into using that one tonight, that I guess in the spirit of things, that's all good. If I deem I'm ready to do that.
So it's like having a gun. Anybody can shoot a gun, but the more training and the more research you do, the better you're gonna handle the gun. You know what I'm saying? So you could work with the Goetia and you could work with them fine. But I always suggest learning, not only learning about them, but learning about yourself.
True.
The main thing when it comes to learning about yourself is to learning about your own personal hangups, your flaws, the things that are keeping you from accomplishing the goals you want to achieve.
Yeah, very true.
Primarily, when it comes to your goals, you want to be extremely specific as you can. So the next time you think about your goals today, just try to get as specific as you can as far as what you want to achieve, what it would feel like once you get there, and a rough time frame of getting there.
Okay.
Be realistic about the time frame. Don't say next month if it's not possible.
Yeah, you got to be realistic.
Yeah. So getting to know those. The other chunk is being honest with yourself. What's keeping you from getting to those goals? What's in your way? What's blocking you? What's stopping you?
Oftentimes it's self-sabotage.
It's always self-sabotage. Yeah. What I was going to say is, we often attribute it to outside things, but really it's an inside thing. It's our reaction to those things. I can say, oh, I can't start a business because the economy's racist. I could say that. But the truth is, I'm using that as an excuse to take the necessary steps to find whatever funding I need, whatever.
Yeah.
Whatever's blocking you, find a way to get around that.
Facts.
And once you get to that, once you figure out what you want exactly, figure out what's stopping you. When you're using these spirits, you're not going to be using them for reasons that are silly.
Yeah.
You can if you want to. It's just you'll have to deal with cause and effect in doing that. And it's not always bad. Just from my experience, it's better to employ these entities in accordance with what your goals are, as opposed to temporary thrill.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. I got you. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. You can't go wrong with using a goetic spirit to help you achieve your long-term goals.
Yeah.
Or to help you remove those obstacles.
Yeah, exactly. I was thinking that too. Remove an obstacle, but still use this in a long-term fashion. Instead of using it as we were saying before, instead of it being like a quick fix, it's more so a relationship that you build that's always easier and probably just more conducive in general.
Exactly.
Copy. Thank you.
All right, everybody. Anything else?
No, man, that's all from me. I'll definitely be bothering you later, so expect to hear from me in the inbox. All right, y'all have a good one.
You too.
Bye-bye.
All right, I'm about to get back to it. Appreciate you guys. Ifadeo, thanks for the links. Rodolfo, thank you for your experiences as always.
You're
Thank you. It's
welcome.
always a pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank everyone.
Cheers. Bye.
Appreciate you guys. Jalari, good to see you. Matthew Watson, good to see you. Tree Marie, thank you. Yeah, J.O., peace, bro. Apollo Soul, hearts and all that. Alchemy Gold, see you next time. And everybody, love you guys. This is TK Trav, aka Travis Mages, here with LVX 777. Peace.